How did I do this time?
I forgot to put the appear link in here. Room's locked. Let me put it in. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Oops. Hold on a second.
Room's starting to fill up.
Are you going to tweet this out? Can you retweet it?
Oh yeah, thanks for reminding me. So much work. I should be paid for this.
How did I do this last time?
Are you tweeting it out, Reed? How many Twitter followers do you have?
Not that many.
Yeah, I only have 600 and some.
Same. 663.
Oh, you got more than me. You dirty rat.
How do I?
I'm not
have
jealous.
the image?
So this is, we did this last week just for fun, and so we thought we'd try it again this week. Keep your expectations very low. Assume this will be boring, dull, and useless. And it can only be downhill from here. Live now, ask questions. Ask us anything, we'll ask you anything. If you want, ask us, ask you. Carl Sagan's Science Pete in the bottom. Court of Curiosity, aka Reed. Oh, Reed, so you had a movie. Quentin Tarantino was right, like within 10, 20 feet from you a couple days ago.
Yeah, I walked out to get some breakfast one morning, and Hollywood Boulevard was, well, half of it was like, it looked like it was from the 1960s or early 70s. And yeah, it turns out later that night, Quentin Tarantino was shooting his movie Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Brad Pitt was driving an old car down Hollywood Boulevard in front of the Pentages. It's pretty cool.
Does anyone see the link to my appear? Can you guys see the comment section when we're live streaming? Can someone check that for me? I think you should be able to.
I can see it. Do you need me to paste it?
Like you see it in the when below us, right, on YouTube, in the comments. You see comments, right? Not the live stream comments, the separate comments.
I see the text, like the text chat.
You can do that, Reed? I thought it. Oh, that's because you're a mod. Yes. Okay, thank you, Reed. Welcome, Eric. Oh, Eric Sargardia. You're the guy who gave me grief in the comment section for not having a real Eastern Orthodox on. Come on, what am I supposed to do? I got, I guess Christians, evangelical Christians, say the same thing. Doug, this is not a real evangelical Christian. This is not an authority figure. This is like low-hanging fruit. I get that all the time, no matter who I bring in. It's either not a real pastor I'm critiquing or a real Christian I'm interviewing. I can't win.
How would we determine unequivocally that we have the real, true version of whoever it is that you're supposed to be interviewing present at that time? Is there like a checklist of criteria that we need to go through?
Hi, Lex. Jordan's back. And Brian. Yeah, I don't know. I just do what I do, and people can sort it out later. So this is the part of the show that's called awkward silence.
Well, how was your day today, Doug?
Oh, I'm a teacher for one student, my daughter, and so today was report card day. So I went through all her grades and gave her an official report card.
Does that have to be, since she's homeschooled, does that have to be filed in some sort of official way for the state?
Yeah. We have to at least have it on file. I use crayon. I hope that's okay. But we did have to file with the state that, hey, my daughter is here, not at school. So the reason why I am homeschooling my daughter is because she has severe insomnia. And so she usually falls asleep at 3 or 4 in the morning. There's just no way I can wake her up at 7 in the morning to go to school. I should start a charter school of some sort that starts at 1 p.m. I bet you I'd get a lot of students. Eric says I should get at least a priest, a bishop, or a deacon.
An Orthodox priest. A bishop would be a little bit harder to probably convince to come on.
Tag us to ask questions, guys, but Brian Dale says he has a question. What do you say to people who say that Jesus has fulfilled the law, therefore the Matthew verse saying to keep the old law is no longer valid? I would say, okay, fine, fair enough. But the way I kind of put tension on that is, and this only works with the Trinitarians, not the Eastern Orthodox. No, this Eastern Orthodox guy, Pete, he believed Jesus was God, he is God. And
they do. They don't.
Yeah.
I don't think. Yeah.
So the whole Old Covenant, New Covenant stuff. The way to get through that is just read an Old Testament verse where it says God said to Moses, and replace it with Jesus, and that alone just puts so tremendous much tension there because Jesus is the fulfillment, right? But now here Jesus himself is saying the old stuff, yet he's the new stuff. And it's just like, that's why I keep bringing up verses about Jesus saying, kill everybody, but spare the virgins. And just keep repeating that over and over again. I just picture, like, I come from that fundamentalist conservative background, and I just picture a nice, kind lady with 4 kids walking into a Sunday morning service and hearing that who she's about to worship killed kids just like her kids, except for the virgins, females, and say, oh yeah, I believe Jesus said that at one time in history, now let's worship him. Is that too serious? Hi, Simon Funk.
Mavordius asks, what is your favorite game to play with friends?
Oh, Taboo. Have you heard of that game?
I haven't played that in a long time.
Pictionary is good.
I like Monopoly. Monopoly can get pretty brutal.
It's too long, though. Tackle chess.
I once played Monopoly against Richard Nixon's grandson.
Is not having a reason. What did you just say?
I once played a game of Monopoly against Richard Nixon's grandson.
Oh, I think you told me that story.
Yeah.
Simon Funk asks, is not having a reason to believe false? The God claim. No, I think that's a similar question to is not believing the same as believing it's false. Any claim. So what does Matt Dillahunty usually say? He has the gumdrops or whatever, and or what do you say, Reed? You explain that. You have like a jar.
Tic Tacs.
Yeah, Tic Tacs. Explain what that is.
Well, yeah. And the analogy is have a box of Tic Tacs. Either it's even or odd, like God exists or does not exist. That's the analogy, and that it's either one or the other. So, but if we can't investigate one way or the other, then we can say, I don't know. Like if someone says they believe the Tic Tacs are even, and I say, I don't believe you, that doesn't mean I believe the Tic Tacs are odd. It's just I don't have any way to determine either way.
Yeah, so when I say that I don't believe that Jesus Christ is God or Yahweh is God or whatever, I'm not saying that it's necessarily false. I'm not saying, actually, let me take that back. I'm willing to take the burden on Christianity and even Judaism and Islam. Well, maybe not Islam, it'd be tougher for me because I don't know as much about it. But I'm willing to take the burden. I'm willing to say it's false and then provide evidence why I think it's false. But on most other God claims, I just don't know enough to say. So it's truly a lack of belief. I'm not saying it's false. Does that make sense, Simus?
Yeah, if like a wrapped Tic Tac container, every time we open it, we find out it's an odd number of Tic Tacs. So we just keep finding this out every time. Then we would have reason to believe that the Tic Tacs were odd if we just came across an unopened box of Tic Tacs.
Do you think that there's the exact same number of Tic Tacs in every Tic Tac box when they fill them up?
Probably not.
I mean, there's only so much volume that could hold, right? And the box has only so much volume, and a Tic Tac itself can only take up so much volume. I guess maybe the orientation of the Tic Tac in the box will have an effect on whether you can have an exact same number every time.
I'm sure there's just an assembly line and there's just stuff pouring into one box after the other, and there's no way they could control that to that amount of detail. Most likely not.
I mean, it wouldn't be that much variation, right? It would be 1, 2, or 3 Tic Tac difference between boxes, but that would be cool if it was the same exact number every time.
So if anybody here who has, if they don't want to come on themselves to ask us questions, if you have friends, like a pastor friend or a crazy friend, and you say, hey,
keep the crazy friends.
Say, hey, there's 3 guys on YouTube right now, it's taking guests. Invite them in. Invite them to come in.
Well, I think we should reiterate the format of last time, where people come in and they have the option to ask us questions, or if they so choose, we can ask them questions, and we'll take turns doing like a lightning round of questions, I guess.
I think the more interesting they are, the longer we'll keep them on. So try not to be boring. Try not to bloviate. That's a sin. That's the only sin I believe in. I don't believe in sin except for bloviation and boringness, boredom. Hi, Pax. Oh, I love that name. But yeah, someone asked about the earlier live stream today, or said, good job or whatever. Yeah, even though, what was his name? Joseph. Even though Joseph was, I feel sorry for him. But I appreciated the fact that, like, when he saw me put my hand up, he stopped talking. Unlike other guests I've had, they'll just keep talking and talking. But he was polite. He didn't interrupt. Reed was watching, and he said that he doesn't believe him, Joseph, that when he said that he would cheat on his wife if he left Eastern Orthodox, that usually when people say that they're least likely to actually do it.
Because God represents morals, or it represents whatever makes morals make sense. So when you're saying if God doesn't exist, what they're hearing in their mind, either consciously or unconsciously, if there were no morals, then there would be no morals. So that's what I think.
So then how would they explain a person who doesn't believe in a God having similar morals to them?
They just have some kind of God's nature.
Is God just giving them their morals even though they don't believe it? Right?
Yeah,
God is always there, like running in the background.
Culture, something like that.
Jesus Garcia asks, PineCreek, what do you think about Jehovah Witnesses? I think they're wrong, like all religions. I believe they're wrong. I do appreciate Jehovah Witnesses for one thing. They don't have the Trinitarian problems that the Trinitarians have. They believe that Jesus is separate. Same with Unitarians, I guess. So they have that going for them. But they're definitely, in my opinion, more cultish. They seem more cultish. Have you guys had much experience with Jehovah Witnesses?
We have a lot of, in New York at least, there's like a lot of, I don't know if you call them colonies or area, like watchtower communities throughout the state. There used to be a huge one in Brooklyn.
I don't think I've had one Jehovah Witness. No, I haven't. I haven't had one Jehovah Witness guest. It's strange. I don't think they would ever come on.
They also don't do blood transfusions.
Oh, yeah.
They don't celebrate holidays.
I think Leah Ramini, who did that Scientology show, is coming out with a new series based on Jehovah's Witnesses. It might be out already. I don't know. I'm gonna look it up.
Hey, Reed, can you turn down the treble on? Do you have the technology to turn down the treble? You're coming in really high strung pitched.
How about now? Testing. Hello. Hopefully that works.
Sounds the same to me. Like try to thicken up your voice a little. Try to be manly.
There you go. Sound more baritone.
Which is more cultish, Mormons or Jehovah Witnesses? Asked Brian. I would say Jehovah Witnesses. That's just my personal opinion. But it's close. It's close.
Who's more cultish, Scientologists or Jehovah Witnesses?
I'd still say Jehovah Witnesses.
I think I would go Scientologist on that.
Yeah.
Scientologist.
See, Scientology is proof. It's hardcore proof that religion is not just about intelligence. Like, it's very tempting for a lot of atheists to say these people have lower IQs, therefore they make less money, or they're from countries with lower information technology, so forth, and so they're more prone to believe the supernatural. But you got Scientologists who are upper income people who believe the nuttiest things. So it's not an intelligence thing. Would you guys agree with that? That religion, although I have seen studies where that correlates, the lower IQ, the more likely you to be religious, or vice versa.
Well, you're inferring there that rich people are smart. That's like a very high correlation.
That is a big issue. I think people apply financial wealth to associate it with intelligence, and I totally agree with you, Reed. That's
no. The best predictor of in the United States, the best predictor of income is IQ.
To what degree?
I couldn't tell you that, but if you have an IQ of 85 or less, you better have inherited your money. If you have an IQ of 120 or more, good chance you're going to be over the median in income.
Well, I think we're defining wealth differently here. I think you're talking about people who make above average salaries, where I'm thinking about people who, just because they have millions and millions of dollars in the bank, doesn't necessarily mean that they have very high IQ.
Well, yeah, I agree with that. Of course, you have to look at the spectrum. Like a lot of people inherit their money.
Yeah.
But if you can't critically think, if you need someone to tell you what to do every minute of your day, odds are you're not going to be someone who's going to start your own business, whatever, get ahead in your career and so forth.
I think, but getting back to the original question, this stuff is mostly based on or heavily dependent on emotional centers of the brain rather than sort of reasoning or rational centers. So,
Yeah.
Like Pete, you've taken many IQ tests, right? Probably the same as me, because in order to go to graduate school, college, like SAT is a type of IQ test. GRE is a type of IQ test. I took the GRE and the oh man, now I forget it. What's the one for business school? What's
GMAT? The
GMAT? I took the GMAT, yeah. And then I haven't really taken like an official IQ test from professionals, but there's a whole bunch of online ones, and they're probably all wrong. But Simon asks, how do you distinguish between a cult and a religion? I got a pithy answer to that.
What is it?
Popularity. So once a cult becomes more mainstream and popular, it becomes religion.
Yeah, well, what about also the degree of freedom that it allocates to its followers? I think a cult would have a tighter leash on its followers than a religion.
But I think all religions have at least some type of... In order for a religion to grow, you have to prevent people from leaving. That implies a tight rein. And you have to encourage people to come in, which encourage reproduction. So I think all religions have that type of control factor.
I think cults also tend to encourage their followers to dissociate themselves from others who don't share the belief, even if that is like extremely close relatives. So, a cult, I could see telling a follower to disown their parents because they don't share the same belief as them.
Yeah, and that happens in evangelical Christianity, definitely. Not everywhere, of course, but evangelical Christians are told, like, be careful, don't spend too much time with this friend.
I think also the prominence of the leader of the belief also differs between religions and cults, I think.
I think it's a good idea to kind of, no matter who you are and whatever group you're in, just think of your whatever social circle or group or just something you take a high interest in as like a cult itself. Just kind of always be on the lookout for being in a cult. That helps mitigate the negative consequences of actually being in one of the bad ones.
I'll tell you who's my favorite cult leader. It's the Bhagwan. You know Bhagwan? Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh? From the leader of Rajneesh Puram.
No, I don't know that.
Did you see, did you ever watch Old Country on Netflix?
No.
Oh, I think I told Doug to watch it. You have to watch this. It's essentially this like Indian meditation cult that moved to Oregon, this like small town in Oregon, and essentially took over the town and created this huge center in this huge cult community.
Mm-hmm.
But it was very popular on Netflix. It's called Old Country.
Okay.
I say Momental lives in Oregon. I wonder if they've ever heard of Rajneeshpuram.
I asked if there's any theists here, any flat earthers. I'll even take a Canadian.
They just got marijuana legalized, so yeah, that'd be interesting to see how they're doing.
Do you think your parents are smoking up now, Doug?
No, but I think my sister's on marijuana, but for pain reasons. I think she's on marijuana and morphine, or I don't know, everything.
Wild Country, yes, Wild Country. What did I say? Did I say Wild Country? He is Osho now. Yeah, the Bhagwan Rajneesh has changed his name to Osho, but I think he's dead now. So.
The most interesting interview I've ever had. No, the most heated one I've ever had was with Mike Brown. Remember that guy, Reed?
Maybe. No, not really. No.
Remember I asked him some type of question and he kind of turned red and looked at, well, let's start with you. And it was like,
Oh, okay. I think I remember.
yeah. That was the most probably tense interview I've ever had. Mike Brown from about a year ago. Trying to think the funniest interview I've ever had. The funniest interview you've had, Reed, is probably with Bambi.
Bambi. Yeah, that's a good one.
You can.
I actually rewatched one of my favorite Reed moments from Cordial Curiosity, which is when a guy turned to him and said, "One day I'm going to be a preacher." And Reed's response was, "Cool."
That guy was pretty crazy.
That was a crazy person. That was definitely.
I just couldn't get half a sentence out without him going off for like minutes at a time. Just, okay, cool.
One day I'm going to be a preacher. Cool.
Hey, Pete, State 924 asks you, do you use faith for anything?
I don't think so. I use probability. So what is the probability of something occurring? I can't think of an instance where I use faith.
Is your girlfriend a probability to you? Is that what you're saying, Pete? Do you have faith in your girlfriend?
Well, I know based on, accumulating data over time, I can gain a good sense of her feelings towards me, but I could also consider the probabilities of those feelings and emotions changing over time, given certain circumstances. Like if I became like a total jerk and deadbeat, I think the probability would increase that she would lose interest in me.
I want you to look into your girlfriend's eyes right now and say that she's a mighty fine probability.
But all things, I mean, I always view faith as always thinking that the outcome that you want is going to occur. Like I have faith that I'm going to do good on this test, or I have faith in the power of the human spirit, or I have, it's always sort of glorified with this sort of expectation that you have of it. of whatever it is that you have faith in. Um, if I do an experiment, it doesn't make sense for me to say that I have faith that this experiment works. I might have a bias and might want to hope that it works, because that means that I've verified my observation or whatnot. But I know that I don't know what the result is until I get the result, and the result is the result in the end.
Read it. This question's for you. Getting
Okay.
feedback from Pete. What's the best book you've read recently? Think about it. I'm recently in the last 10 years. But about faith, my advice to non-believers, atheists, is don't shy away from that word faith. Embrace it. Use it. Just use it the way that a lot of evangelical Christians use it, is trust based on evidence, and say, yeah, I have faith that when I get on a jet airplane, that the people who fuel it up and check it know what they're doing and have passed all these tests and all that. Like, I would say it behooves you. It's to your advantage to not run away from that word, like I think some atheists do. Okay, the best book you've ever read, or the most your favorite.
Now there's the book that I've most recently read that I like, or ever read.
Both.
Oh man. Most recently, I finished The Coddling of the American Mind. That was really good. Subtitle to that is How Good Intentions and Bad Ideas Are Setting Up a Generation for Failure. Lots of good stuff from that book. It's from Jonathan Haidt and Greg Lukianoff. Greg is from the FIRE organization. It's something for individual rights and education. It's a free speech organization, and they have diagnosed what's causing such polarization and bad stuff going on in the country and propose some solutions. It's really good.
Ornamental Mind asked me, Doug, what's the main reason you believe Jesus Christ existed? I'm assuming that's who JC is. I don't know. It seems too unlikely to me that a guy named Jesus never ever existed at all, like either as an apocalyptic preacher or some charismatic guy doing some social movement things. You look at just the fact that the birth narratives in Luke and Matthew are so different. Just the fact that they're messed up says something that maybe there is a little bit of truth behind it. I don't know. It just seems more probable to me slightly that existed rather than not. But you wouldn't get that from reading the Paul. That's what makes me hesitant. It's like, but anyhow, I'm going to bore Pete if I go on with that.
Yeah, I'm already falling asleep. Can I recommend maybe, is there a way that you can change the title in the midst of the broadcast?
Yeah, I can do whatever you want, Pete.
I'm just saying, if you put the link in the title,
or the description,
or the description or whatever, I would have more faith that a person would join.
I'll continue putting it in the chat.
Just because I don't think people, are able to see it.
Now I can post it. Oh, there it is. They work now.
Done, Pete. If you guys, whoever comes in for the first time, should see a different title change. Next question. Thanks for the suggestion, John. I got your suggestion the other day. I think I looked into Kathleen Turner. I roll with the flow with my channel, so it's like, if it's easy, I do it. I'm not doing this for making money or anything. Adam asked, would Doug consider doing a show aimed at kids his own? What? Would Doug consider doing a show aimed at kids his own kid's age? Oh, I thought you were calling me a kid. No, I wouldn't. The reason I have a rule, I would never interview a person under 18. That's just me. Not worth the risk for me. I wouldn't want very deep topics being discussed from a 40-year-old schmuck to my 15-year-old daughter. That just, call me old-fashioned, but I'd feel uncomfortable with that.
What do you think a middle school SE session would look like?
If it's very, very benign, like talking about, certain scientific simple principles, then maybe, yeah. Like a teacher would with a student. Like, I think it's okay to teach theory of knowledge, critical thinking at that age. But even, you got to keep in mind, like, middle school, their prefrontal cortex is not developed.
Yeah.
So actually doesn't fully mature until their late 20s. So Reed should just right about now should be coming up on the prefrontal cortex
Yeah.
maturity time frame.
Feel much different.
I'm actually shrinking mine by drinking beer.
Oh yeah, Shades of Cascades is you're a wizard, right? Shades of Cascades, is that the proper term? Wiccan or polytheist, pantheist, witch-like person? But he's at work, so
That
I
would
can't
be
join.
that would be a fantastic religion if that existed still. Wizard, the wizard faith.
Yeah, exactly. Like, if you're going to believe in a deity or god, you might as well make it interesting.
I can picture a bunch of like Merlins getting together and trying to. I think wizards also were involved in alchemy. That might have been the thing that they were doing. Would Nostradamus be considered like a wizard? It's a bit of a astrological wizard. And they would have to have those robes with the sleeves, like the sleeve of the wizard.
Pete, how do you think Christianity spread so fast? This is from Jesus Garcia. So fast and change empires and emperors in a short period of time. How's that possible that Christianity spread so fast?
Well, like, what's your definition of so fast?
More than average.
Well, I mean, it didn't happen within a year or two or three. It was, at least many decades before the first Gospels were even written. You can correct me if I'm wrong there. Then you had, the lore goes, the traveling of the apostles through Europe, and word of mouth and slow conversion.
What you just
there.
said. What you just said is, I think, the right answer. It's because where and when it took place, it was at the time and point in history where the Roman Empire they had the infrastructure. They had roads, for goodness sakes. They had roads and ships, and there's a lot of part of the world didn't even have that, just to get around from point A to point B. But I think the point that Jesus is getting at is, how can it spread so fast if it is just all based on a lie? If I was a Christian, that's what I would be thinking. But Jesus, all you have to do is stop and think for a little bit. Are you prepared to say that truth is based on this metric of growth? Like, aren't we really talking about popularity at this point? Are you saying that things that are popular are true? Of course not.
Yeah, what's that quote? A lie can go around the world before the truth even has the time to get its shoes on.
Oh, Brian Dell has a great question. Reed and Pete, what percentage of the skeptics they think are left liberal versus conservative right? So if you were to take your best guess, what percentage of skeptics are left-leaning? What percentage are right-leaning?
I'd say at least 75% left-leaning.
I'd like to think that most skeptics are more middle of the road, independent.
You like to think?
So I don't know. So yeah, I purposely said that. I think they will tend to be more left. I just don't know how far left they will be. I think they'll be. I think I agree with Reed that it's above 50% that they're going to lean left, but I wouldn't make it. I wouldn't say it's a hard left.
Yeah,
I mean, going back to Haidt's moral foundations, you got to be low on authority and sanctity. So conservatives are usually higher on those two, and that might lend themselves to be more religious.
yeah. My guess would be this, by the way, is all for the United States, no other country. I would say it's 2/3 left leaning, because someone who's middle right in the United States, no, someone who's middle right in Canada would be like right in the middle, maybe even left in the United States. So that whole left-right political type leanings things really changes from country to country.
So I'm just getting back to the question of like, how do you explain how Christianity had such a, fast spread? The Council of Nicaea, I believe, was it until about 1000 something? I think there was like a good
No. Council of Nicaea is like in fourth century.
force. Okay, so I'm just thinking, if we compare the spread of Christianity through the Roman Empire, and we think about the spread of the scientific method over the past 500 years, I think they're on sort of the same time scale. I would argue that maybe the scientific method had a spread even faster and had an even greater impact on society as a whole. So you can look at it that way too.
When was Constantine? And how soon after that was Christianity taken up in the Roman Empire?
That's
Probably something had to do with it.
Council of Nicaea was at 325 AD.
Yeah, it's a bad thing to say is evidence for something being true just by how fast it spreads. Someone wrote in the chat about Mormonism. Mormonism is the death nail to evangelical Christianity, because it grew so fast. People had visions. Of course, it's Christians and evangelicals and myself think it's all a bunch of BS, but you can use the outsider test of faith so perfectly with Mormonism as compared to evangelical Christianity.
Actually, Richard Dawkins coined a term for the spread of such ideas and beliefs like Christianity and stuff. It's called a meme. Richard Dawkins, those of you who don't know, Richard Dawkins was the first one to coin the term meme, which its actual definition is a self-replicating, non-genetic element. So these are sort of cultural traditions, mythologies, these types of things that replicate and propagate themselves through the population.
Jesus, you're making me nuts. You're making me crazy, Jesus. He's basically saying, we got someone who wants to come in. Let me see who it is. Jordan, you were on last week. So I'm going to reject
Jordan for a minute.
What was I going to say? What was I talking about? The best explanation for the growth and Christianity spread. So therefore, the best explanation is that it's true that Jesus actually rose from the dead. This all stems from an idea, a concept, a belief that when you read the Bible, that most of it's true, most of it's history. Something can be completely false and still spread, still be a movement that changes the lives of others. Something can be false and still radically change one's life, which we see in almost every religion. Jesus, it could be very possibly true that this Jesus person predicted his own death, and some people were expecting it, like with John the Baptist, and he died, and he was thrown in a pit, and he was eaten by dogs. But just one person might have had some type of sorrowful vision of this Jesus and said, I saw, and told her friends, I think it was Mary, actually, if I was to guess, if Mary's a real person, and told another person, and that other person said, you know what? I thought I saw Jesus too. And these whole scripture verses about Jesus eating and talking with people and walking with people, you do realize that could all just be made up, right? Anyhow, sorry, Pete. I'm trying not to be too religious here tonight, but
I just out of irony here, we were talking about cults before, and you changed the title to "Join Us."
The PineCreek cult.
Jordan, what's the topic you have for us? Put it in I come prepared with a topic this time. Okay, come back in, Jordan. Mavortius. Yes, Mavortius, a.k.a. Jordan. The flu spreads quickly each year, yeah. But the flu is true.
It does.
Is he coming in?
Yeah, Jordan, you come back in. Marshmallow test. What? Better be interesting, Jordan. Okay, here he is. Okay, hang on. Let's see if I can do this at the same time.
Come on down.
Oh,
Yay! It worked.
Here we go.
technology. I am just as good as the non sequitur show.
Yeah. Right.
Okay, Jordan, what's your thing for us?
Oh, I started reading a book, and I started taking notes about it. It's a topic that intrigued me. Have you ever heard of the marshmallow test?
Yeah.
Chubby Bunny, though you put marshmallows in your mouth, and that one?
Not quite.
Okay.
Psychology.
I have not.
Yeah, I first heard about this test in psychology, and it's about sitting a child in a room at a desk and putting a treat in front of them.
Oh.
And telling them that they have a choice. They can either have this treat right now or wait to have more of that same treat just for waiting.
I've heard of
as
this.
a reward. Right. So so this pertains to self-control. It's a psychological test. And I started reading a book written by the guy who headed up this research. Walter Mischel, I think.
I was a virgin till 22, Jordan, so I have great self-control. And I had a lot of opportunities. I would not touch those marshmallows.
Oh, Doug.
I just warmed them up a bit.
Right. So, let's see. I am. How far into this am I? I think I'm about halfway through the book, and I've gotten some useful notes out of it. So I wanted to talk about the practical applications of this research, where they experimented with different ways of assisting in this process of delaying gratification. And in fact, they took notes on also how temptations can be made more difficult to resist as well, which tends to be kind of like the flip side of what the helpful parts are. So one of the obvious ones that the kids sometimes knew to try was to distract themselves, right? To distract themselves from the treat, to not think about it, to hide it, to just put it out of view altogether. Those ones, are pretty pretty easy to think of.
That's exactly what I did when I had dates as a teenager. I'd put her in the other room.
Uh-huh.
Wear a blindfold. I tried every trick.
And some of this will be a little bit context dependent. So like, yeah, sometimes you won't have the option of using some of these methods depending on what it is you're trying to avoid. But something that, in fact, we talked about in a different context is thinking of oneself from a third person point of view. That can be handy for.
That's the main reason I give for me leaving Christianity, is viewing myself in a third person view.
Yeah, and I think I did a little bit of that in that process as well. Your mood can influence how well you resist temptation. If you have a happier mood, if you're thinking happy thoughts, it's more effective than having sad or depressing thoughts. But
if you're thinking happy thought, I'm still always relaying this to the girlfriend analogy. Like having happy thoughts wouldn't help in that case.
Yeah, it's happy in a different sense. Yeah. If you can reduce stress, having high stress makes it more difficult to resist temptation. If you see or think about your loved ones,
that will help with your temptation. Help reduce it.
It can help. Yeah, it can help your resistance to temptation. Yeah.
Is this advice for Christians on how not to lust, or where's this going?
Well, this is broader applications than that, I would say, but that's an example potentially. And yeah, because like this issue of self-control is kind of like, it's one of those things that I think a lot of people, myself included, tend to like beat ourselves up about a lot. Because we feel like we don't have self-control with regard to specific things. Each of us kind of has our own struggles that we have, and sometimes we beat up ourselves a lot about certain things. So like, I want to know strategies for how to build up self-control with regard to those things. And this book is offering up some methods for how to do that.
Well, it's known that a common characteristic of very successful people is that they're very good at experiencing deferred gratification. But the things that you mentioned, it sounds like this book is describing all these things as far as controlling your self-control, I guess, whatever, that this is all within your power to do these things. What if there are what if there are a spectrum of behaviors where people just biologically are not good at controlling their desires? They are just chronically impulsive.
Yeah, they do talk about the genetic predispositions, that there are some people who are better at resisting things than others.
An addiction gene.
Yeah, so it's kind of one of those things where it's like, regardless of what your predispositions are, here are some steps that you can take. Here are things that you can try in your efforts to.
Well, you know what, Jordan?
Resist impulses.
I think we should use this book and test the techniques, and we should have a contest. I'm thinking Seinfeld right now. Do you guys know where I'm going with this?
I didn't watch Seinfeld, so no, I don't know what you're talking about.
Don't ask any more questions.
Let's see who can be the king of the kingdom, the master of his own domain for the next, each put in $100, winner takes all. Never mind. Forget I said anything. Go on, Jordan.
Let's see. There's a few other things on this list here. And this is just what I've like taken notes of so far. One thing I've heard about from multiple sources, not just this book, but they talk about identifying with your future self, or like having empathy for your future self instead of thinking of your future self as a stranger, which is something we naturally tend to do. So when you're contemplating the consequences of following your impulses, that's something to attempt to do is take a step back and think about your future self and the consequences they will face, and try to think of those consequences actually happening to you, recognizing the fact that it will be you eventually. And let's see. Oh, yeah, here's another one.
Yeah, I didn't understand that at all. Like that, your future self is a stranger. Yeah, I don't get that.
Yeah. Well, okay. They talked about how. Do you remember the experiment where they had like people talk about people are asked to think about their beliefs, and then they're asked to think about a stranger's beliefs, or not a stranger's beliefs, but the beliefs of other people, and then they're asked, "Hey, what does God believe?" And then, it turns out the part of their brain that they're using is the same part that they used to talk about their own beliefs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where it's like a certain part of your brain is being used for this function. So when you're thinking about yourself, there's a certain part of your brain you're using. When you're thinking about things happening to other people, there's another part of your brain that you're using. Now, when you're asked to think about your future self, there's a natural tendency for you to think about that future self as a stranger and not using the self part of your brain. That's what they found in their research. That people tend to distance themselves from their future selves.
So how does that help with impulsivity?
It's pertaining to when you're contemplating the consequences of your decisions, like your resistance or giving into an impulse, like smoking, right? Like if you think about just the short-term consequences, you probably disregard them or like the short-term consequences are pleasurable, but the long-term consequences are harmful. But if you think about if smoking were to instantly give you lung cancer or something like that, maybe that would, if you try to imagine that happening, would you be okay with it? And it's like, no, I'm not so comfortable with the idea of instantly getting lung cancer. But because we don't tend to think of our future selves as ourselves, we don't take seriously those long-term consequences.
Okay, I get that.
Have you heard of the podcast You Are Not So Smart?
Yeah, I'm aware of that one. Yep.
The episode 131 goes into the marshmallow test. It's really good. And I think there was a study maybe a year ago, 2 years ago, and it raised a little bit of doubt about the actual impact delayed gratification does. Like if you teach, children to delay gratification, the marshmallow test predicts they will have better, socioeconomic status later in life. And I think they tried to replicate that, didn't find a lot of support for it, but it's still an interesting test. It's like if you go on YouTube and watch all the videos, it's really good.
I think also the level of delayed gratification matters. So it's the ability, and I could speak to this having gone through many years of schooling, right? It's not just the ability to resist the urge to want immediate gratification, like to get the rush of the sugar of the marshmallow. It's also the ability to accept the pain that comes with achieving a long-term goal.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's like a big defining, a big difference there, is that knowing that what I have a future goal way down the road, I want to be this at some later point in my life, and I know that I am going to have to go through hell to get there, but I'm willing to go through that hell and accept the pain and the torture or whatever it is, because the prospect of achieving that goal is so much greater than any sort of pain that I will feel on the road to getting there. So I think that's how I've been always.
It's an exercise in faith, isn't it?
It's not really an exercise in faith. It's just acknowledging. There's this in my lab. I have this.
Some may call it that, but yeah.
In my lab, I have this picture that I look at every day. It's on the top. It says "Your Plan," and it has a guy on a bike riding towards like a checkered flag, and he's riding on a very low inclined road. So it's like a very easy, ride to the finish line. And then below that is reality. And it's these pits, and there's like lions and tigers, and there's tornadoes, and then the flag is way at the end, and there's all these other things that are going to kill you on the way. And I have a little thing on it that says you are here now, so I can always move it to where I feel like I am at any moment in time, right? And in science, this makes perfect sense, because making discoveries, developing a drug or whatever is extremely difficult and requires enormous amounts of failure. So it's the ability to accept failure, to recognize the pain that comes with failure, but also to recognize that with that pain, the negative aspect of it comes an even greater positive aspect, and that is you learn something new, which helps bring you closer to meeting your long-term goal.
This is why farmers have a huge advantage when it comes to self-control and restraint, is because when you're a farmer, you put in the seed, you have to wait months and months and months to get the result, to get the bounty, the fruition of your labors. And so, and then you could have a hailstorm during the season, or your whole crops can be wiped out. There's pain, there's patience. Unfortunately, the world is moving towards urban setting, and so those principles, those lessons haven't really been taught.
Would you say it's been suggested that the whole concept of sacrifice, I kind of had that idea in mind, where it's giving up what you have right now for a reward later, and that's kind of the ritual that came out of that. We kind of use the word sacrifice in those contexts, in a broader context too.
Have you seen the movie The Big Short? You can also apply this to stock trading, investing.
I was just about to say there's like huge economic implications when it comes to deferred gratification. The stock market is the majority of the stock market is built on immediate gratification.
Yeah.
Which is terrible for people who are trying to build sound businesses. Mm-hmm. Just think about it. You're trying to do things the right way. You see a business as like a fine painting that you really want everything to be perfect and in place and to be running as smoothly as possible. But you have these shareholders that want to make their return on investment sooner rather than later, and that forces you to make rash judgments and decisions that might not be completely thought through, because you're forced into serving into somebody's immediate or short-term gratification, which prevents you from building or taking the measures to build that long-term success.
Or professional athletes.
It's totally counterintuitive.
Like athletes will train for months and months and months on end, setbacks. Like, my biggest piece of advice for people who struggle with self-control, self-restraint is to exercise. Feel pain, physical pain, learn to enjoy it, and set a goal and try to reach it.
That is one of the areas where I'd like to improve. Yeah, because I don't exercise regularly right now.
I'll push back on learn to enjoy it. I don't think you ever enjoy pain, but you learn to accept it. A
little bit of pain is nice. Just, you know.
I don't know what you do in your private time, but it's not about enjoying pain. Like, even like, I'll do an experiment, and it could be a big experiment, and failing it doesn't get any easier. Failing it one time versus failing experiments thousands of times. But it's viewing it in the sense that this failure also has a positive to it. The pain of going to the gym and working out, that pain, you experience it, but the positive of it is that you're healthier because of that pain. You'll be more attractive to mates because you got a better physique. Or, there's always a benefit to it in the end.
No, that's not a benefit. That's a problem for me.
So yeah, I think I did see this marshmallow test done on TV once. I remember there was one kid that actually tried to just lick the marshmallow just to get a taste of it, just to see, is this something that's worth getting the immediate gratification for?
I think somebody asked a question for me in the chat earlier.
Yeah, they're asking.
I just looked at it.
They're asking why you've been missing in action somewhere else.
Yeah, I only showed up on BTWN like twice, maybe. Had some interesting chats with Matt Slick, but I don't know. I guess they had a question they wanted my opinion on, which is kind of weird. But so yeah, I like I said, I'm like halfway through this book, so I think there's probably more to cover. But
I would argue that religion is ripe with immediate gratification under the disguise of long-term gratification. Long-term gratification being
the kingdom of heaven is now. Yeah.
Right. The long-term, the fake long-term gratification would be entrance into paradise. But really, you're just serving immediate gratification in this process.
Yeah, I think it appears to me kind of like, on one side, the faiths are kind of like condemning human nature, but at the same time, they're also attempting to exploit it. So, and I think that's also what this book is getting at is stop looking at it as a fight against your nature, but look for ways to use the nature that you have, because your nature is kind of complex. There's multiple facets to it. So exploit your nature to fix the issues that you're having.
Jordan, does the book talk about how the devil and the evil influence plays into all this, like spiritual forces? No, doesn't.
They've mentioned the metaphors of Adam and Eve in the garden, but no, they have not gone that far. So one of the points that was made in the book, and I think you touched on this, is that the results of the marshmallow test, like if a child takes the test as at like 5 years old, the results of that do not determine what their future is going to be, but it has kind of a little bit of a predictive power, but people can learn the cognitive skills that help with deferral of gratification. So it's it's something that you can develop. And so, yeah, it's not a there's no reason to lose hope if somebody fails the test, because improvements can be made. So.
I would argue that a child is more likely to fail that test if before entering the test they had like a Diet Coke.
yeah, there's certain conditions that can influence
Right.
it. Sure.
Because they say that people who drink Diet Coke a lot end up eating more sugary desserts or items because they're trying to compensate, or their brain is trying to compensate for the lack of sugar that they was tricked into thinking it was having by having the diet drink.
Yeah, he did say there is a general trend as you age that you do get better at deferral of gratification anyway. But even that is, again, a trend and not a rule, because sometimes people get worse at it. Sometimes people get more impulsive as they age too. But yeah, so it's something that's been on my mind a lot lately.
So let's ask some questions here now. So your belief is that deferred gratification is better for your overall well-being. What's your level of confidence that belief is true on a scale of 0 to 100?
I don't like this scale thing. I don't like putting a number to this.
Those silly S years, right?
It's I would say it's more likely than not that it's helpful.
So we're over 50%.
Yeah, sure.
This is good. Okay, so from your personal experience, what is it that leads you to believe that this is the case? What is the best piece of evidence that you've seen that leads you to believe that deferred gratification is the best means to achieving your goals, I guess, or achieving whatever it is that you want to achieve, as to other means?
I don't know if I could think of a best example, but I can think of a variety of them that seem to share the same essence, that seem to communicate the same point. And as we've touched upon earlier, the idea of planting a seed with the anticipation that there will be a harvest, with the idea of saving your virginity until you're married. That's one example that Christians favor. The idea of let's see.
Sure, but what I'm trying to get at is, for you personally, since this is a belief that you hold,
Okay.
What resonates most with you as to bringing you to the level of confidence that you have in this belief? Is it a personal thing? Is it something that you personally experience?
You're asking for a personal example of how
or is it like a story from someone else that resonates very well with you? Or what is the
scientific papers from the author of the book?
That too, yeah. Is it?
Yeah, there's a little bit of because this is scientifically investigated, and that seems to be the pattern that arises. I have trust in the scientific research behind this.
Well, there's your mistake right there.
Yeah. It lends a certain credibility to it that I do not have in. I do not have as much credence for priests. I'll just say that.
But hang on. What are we talking about here? Like, are you trying to change is it exercise that you want to get better at, or what's your main problem here?
I was trying to get to that in a sort of more nuanced way.
Right. You guys want to know what am I personally struggling with? Yeah. What are the impulses I'm giving into too much?
Are you having too much sex? Are you eating too much? What of the 7 sins is the problem here?
I just masturbate constantly.
Watching too many of Doug's live streams. That's the problem.
Yeah. I would say working out is one thing that I'd like to get into regularly. I've never established a routine before. I've even like had a subscription to a gym, but ended up not using it, and that was a waste of money. I
Tell you what, here, let me help you with this. It's very simple.
Uh-huh.
Very, very simple. Okay, so Reed, Pete, and I are going to make a bet about you. This takes some very simple push-ups. Reed, how many push-ups do you think Jordan could do right now without stopping?
How many can I mean, 40, 50?
How about you,
40?
Pete? How about you, Pete? What's your guess?
Can I ask a couple of questions beforehand?
No,
I just have to guess.
We could ask Jordan to stand.
Well, like, how old is Jordan?
Yeah,
I guess I'll reposition my camera here.
How old are you, Jordan?
I am 27.
27.
So how many can you do without stopping straight? I'll say, well, he says he's already told us that he wants to get into working out. So I'm going to say I'll give it 20.
Okay, I'll say 30. So we got 20, 30, 40. Okay,
Okay.
So what I want you to do now, Jordan, is point your camera towards the ground,
Yeah.
and we're gonna set a baseline, and then we're gonna set a goal. And
Right.
then if we do this next week, Friday, we'll see if you meet that 1 week goal.
So is this something I should be doing every day and see if my numbers go up?
Yeah.
Is that the idea?
Yeah, that's the idea. And
Right.
we could even give you incentives. People will love you on YouTube a little bit more. You'll feel better about yourself. You might get a better looking girlfriend. I don't know if you have a girlfriend now. Do you have
Not
a girlfriend?
currently.
Okay, you might get a girlfriend. Would you feel comfortable doing some push-ups for us right now, or no?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll just say right now, I'm pretty confident I can do 20, because I have done sets of 20, but
Well,
the approach
talk
I
is
would take-
cheap. Talk is cheap, Jordan. Just get on the floor.
Let's not think about it too much. Let's
Well,
collect
I
the
guess
data.
what I'm asking for is what would count as a failure.
We're going to be very lax. We're going to be very lax. You mean like when you do it right now? Yeah, just try to get like at least a 50-degree bend in your elbows, like from down to up. It doesn't
Yeah,
matter.
like your chest has to touch the floor.
Well, I'm not even
That's
going to be that strict. I'm going to say as long as you're like within an inch of the floor and you go like almost to straight.
In fact, when you push off, you have to be able to lift your body off the ground and clap your hands before you come back down and do.
Well, I'm not concerned about the posture, but I think what I've been doing is I stop when I can't keep the same rate up. Right.
No,
So I'll do them consistently until my rate starts slowing down.
You stop whenever
You
you
stop
want.
when you physically aren't able to do anymore.
I want you to stop when your face is beet red.
When
If you can't do one within like 5 seconds of like being up, that's the cutoff.
No, I would argue that the cutoff is when his arms prevent him from lifting his body off the ground anymore.
Well, he
Okay.
could rest for like a minute if he's like up. Could he do
Right,
that?
but he's
right.
still in that position. Right?
So
It's
again,
not like he's
I
standing
think
up.
the pace kind of matters. So I will.
Why are we still talking about this? Let's do it.
All right. Let me change my speaker setting so I can just hear you guys' feedback as I'm doing this.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll provide. Well, it'll be interesting to see who provides the different sort of motivation here. You know, I'm curious to see who is more of the drill sergeant here, and who's
I think
more
he's
of
going to
like,
rip off like 55 of these things. He's just
we'll have to see. Only Jordan can shock us here.
With some adrenaline and people watching,
oh
so
yeah.
it's gonna be. At least
Oh, look at
40.
those pecs, man. Oh, he's sandbagged us here. He's
Do
going to
we
rip
have
off
any,
100.
do we have any Rocky theme music to go with this?
Oh yeah.
No, we can skip that, please.
Oh no, then If I play Eye of the Tiger, it's going to be demonetized for sure. Okay.
Play
yes.
your intro music. Play your intro music to go with this.
Jeez.
No, what,
Here we go. Are we going to count? No, don't count, because then we'll hear it.
Can he hear us? I don't know if he can hear us.
Yeah, he can hear us.
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah, I've got speakers in front of my computer here.
We should count. We should count just to make sure we're all counting.
If you can do 100, I'll become a Christian.
No, please. Then I will intentionally stop before I get to that.
people in the chat, put your numbers, put your guesses.
Place your bets.
I'm pretty sure I can do 20. So
I'm gonna say
I guess
I'm gonna say 33.
All right, here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, I now present to you Jordan.
Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28.
Keep going. Keep
29,
going. Keep going.
30.
Okay.
Excellent.
That was rough.
That was 30 on the button. That was my first guess, and I changed it to 33. But
So, I want to note that.
your face is not even red. Good for you.
Yeah. Part of what determined my number is that did I ever tell you guys about my thyroid condition I had?
No.
Should we call
I had,
911?
No. This is something in my past that I think kind of had an influence on this. I had hyperthyroidism, which sped up my metabolism to the point where I couldn't even eat fast enough, that it was using up my energy. And I got down to like 5% body fat.
Wow.
And my muscles started atrophying.
Oh my God.
And so I got down to like 135 pounds. And I was constantly sore all the time. My whole body would ache. And I just felt too weak. I think I even went swimming once and I couldn't stay afloat.
Did you go on like hormone therapy for it?
They used radiation on my thyroid in order to reduce how much it was producing.
Wow.
And so yeah, after the treatment, the treatment actually kind of overcorrected it. So now my thyroid's underactive, and I take a synthetic replacement hormone to keep it at normal levels.
What's the heaviest and the lightest you've ever been?
The lightest was definitely the one. Yeah. The 135 was definitely the lowest, and then I think the heaviest was probably about 190, somewhere in there.
How tall are you?
Wow.
5'10".
Oh, we're the same. We almost have the exact same numbers. I'm 5'10". The heaviest I've been was 190s. The lowest is maybe, as an adult, 150s. I'm at probably 175-ish right now.
So the motivation for this is to
Oh yeah,
Actually,
work out more
eventually,
so that you can sort of
yeah. So I definitely want to get back the muscle I had before, but at the same time, I think I want to exceed what I had before because I wasn't in shape before either. So,
Oh, John promised 50 cents a push-up, and so he donated $15. Am I supposed to give that to Jordan, brother John? So the point of all this was, let's just work
Yeah,
on
for
10% improvement per week. So a week from today, try to do 33.
All right. Yeah. Okay. Since I have a sense of what that failure felt like, I'll start working on that. I'll try to do sets of 30 and try to push it from there.
And I tell you, like, push-ups is one of the best exercises because it works not only your chest, but your arms, your core. Like, you're going to have women just, you're going to have to, then we're going to have to work on other self-control issues.
Right. Yeah.
But having I mean, we're going to the gym and having like a set goal, like I want to be able to do this many of this or this, is definitely helpful.
Yeah. Because I feel like there was a time in my life where I probably could have done a lot more. Like in high school, I probably could have done twice that many. But
I was also high school. You're 27 now, so
yeah.
I mean, I'm 35 and I'm not sure I could do 20 push-ups right now because I haven't gone to the gym in a couple of years at this point. So,
Yeah.
Well, good for you, Jordan, for doing that live on stream here. That took some courage.
Jordan gets points for being a good sport.
Okay, Jordan. So report back in a week from today. Even if we're not live streaming, message me and tell me if you got up to 33.
Right. Has anyone else offered to join in yet? Live?
No, not yet. But I would like to have an open seat. Just like how I have one for Jesus always next to me here. It encourages maybe some people to come in. So.
Uh-huh.
But it was interesting. Thanks for coming on. And we'll be praying.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
33.
Good job.
And remember,
Maybe next time. Yeah.
when you feel sore tomorrow, you're going to know that there's a good reason why you're sore.
Yeah.
Good luck.
I like how this Doug stream has now become a self-help channel.
Yeah. This book is almost a self-help book in the way it's laying this out, trying to give us some practical application.
In fact, my shirt right now is not in any way conducive with doing push-ups. It says "here for the beer." So
Yes.
I'm going to run to the bathroom. 1 second.
Okay. Good to see you, Christy. Christy, would you like to come on? So just click the X there, Jordan, because I already got my three little things here.
And I'll keep listening and stay in the conversation. Thanks.
Yep.
See ya.
How many push-ups do you think you could do, Reed?
40, maybe. I've been working out at least once or twice a week for a while.
I work out with my daughter at the gym.
Cool.
It's mostly treadmill stuff, though. State 924, first time here. I thought this was a call-in SE show. I'm happy to be correct if I'm wrong. This is whatever we want it to be, State 924. But yes, if someone wants to call in, come in. SE is more Reed's thing than mine. I would say I'm SE light. Well, how would you describe my style, Reed? Do you consider me an SEer? I do, but not like most people do it.
I wouldn't say about halfway. You do outsider test for faith, and but you don't really go into like the reliability of reasons that much, like explicitly, but you still ask questions about it.
Eric, I was a farm kid, so I was pretty strong. I think at my peak, I did 3 plates on each side. So what's that?
Damn.
Dinner plates? Or are we talking about like salad plates?
45 times 6 plus, how much is the bar? 40 pounds?
45, I think. I think the bar is 45 as well.
The peak, I did bench 315.
Wow.
Doug is a non-Aristotelian SE. I support SE. I think it's great. But I do see, like, I don't think SE is effective if it's more than 20 minutes long. I think at that point, people just get tired of always being asked questions and not having like a conversation back and forth. And my live streams are never that short. So you can't, would you agree with that, Reed? You just can't do SE. You can't have someone on the hot seat for that long without things starting to get little.
Yeah, I would agree. Maybe a little bit longer, but I don't know. It depends on the person and how comfortable they're feeling. Sometimes they ask me questions and I'm glad to respond.
Yeah, and I don't, like, I hear the criticisms of SE, and especially coming from evangelical Christians, that's a form of proselytization for atheism. My advice is not even to push back against that criticism, to say, yeah, sure. What's wrong with that? It's I'm totally all right with saying that I preach, that I have my own gospel, that I proselytize. I embrace the vocabulary of the age. That I have faith.
You should preach like, one of those very flamboyant preachers when you preach the gospel of doubt. Instead of Jesus, you should say, you got to listen to doubt.
You've done a video like that.
Did you?
See,
I told you I don't watch George. I don't watch.
I have a video doing exactly that. Yeah, you seriously haven't seen it?
Now that Reed mentioned it, it does ring a bit of a bell. I remember you saying that you did something similar to that, but I don't think I've watched the whole thing.
Of course not. Where I put on that very tight-fitting jacket, and I was trying to imitate Stephen Furtick. But yeah, I honestly think that would that we do need that type of message or preachment of some type of hope or meaning or purpose that's beyond religion, that people can say, yeah, I do want to get behind verification and repeatability and believing things for reasonable, good reasons and so forth.
Yeah. Live better, help often, wonder more. So.
There was something that I wanted to bring up from last week's.
Dean's coming on, by the way.
Who?
Dean, Pastor Dean.
Pastor Dean. Okay.
He says he has to get dressed first. So.
While he's in the process of doing that. From last week's broadcast, and this is something that's I've noticed come up in a couple of discussions that I've had, is this notion that I always bring up the this idea that you can't use philosophy to rationalize everything in the world or to make sense of everything in the world. At some point, you need to use the scientific method to really gain a firm understanding of reality. And then people the philosophers will come and say, well, science is just philosophy. And I was thinking about that, and the answer is the scientific method is a method derived from philosophy, but to my knowledge, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, it's the only method derived from philosophy which requires an observation and quantitation of the physical world around you to draw conclusions.
Yeah, I'd say science is philosophy with data or more data.
Right. So to say that science is just philosophy is kind of disingenuous. I think, or anyone who says that science is just philosophy clearly doesn't understand
Yeah,
the methods used by science.
fluffy is kind of just like science with hypothetical data.
Right. Exactly.
Iron Charioteer is saying, I think he's saying this as a critique or a contrast to SE. Just talk to the person. Christians see SE as a technique, just like the pickup artist or manipulation. I would say all types of communication between human beings is a form of manipulation, or most at least. But if you talk to people who have been SE'd, most of them come out of that experience with a positive experience, right, Reed?
Yeah, I mean, I'm genuine, but as a filmmaker, I'm not afraid of the word manipulation. That's all filmmaking is, at least for fiction.
As someone who's also, want to add, as someone who's read one of the pickup artist books in the past, the techniques are very different in that the pickup artist techniques specifically hit emotional centers and require physical cues to get the desired outcome that you want. So the location in which you're doing it, the scenario in which you're doing it, like the number of people present, if there are males and females present, moving to different locations, those types of things, where SE is strictly more just conversational.
Hi, Dean.
Hey, Dean.
What's going on, guys?
What's up?
You look half asleep.
Yeah, I live on the East Coast, so I got some coffee in hand. How you guys doing?
Good. We're just hanging out on a Friday night, building fellowship, community, helping those who have struggles.
Doug can't help himself.
What? I'm being sincere and honest. Like, this is community. This is encouragement. Jordan, struggling with certain things. Got him exercising. Like, praise science. We're making a change.
And science blessed Jordan in his future exercising endeavors.
Nice. There you go. So I've got two questions. And they're for one is for Doug and one is for the group. I'll go with the group one first. My first question is, would you guys say that I want to word it right, the moral principle of good is basically centers around not causing harm to other people?
You want to go first, Reed, or Pete? Who wants to?
Do we say that?
Well,
I think Doug says that.
I'm just asking the group. Would you say that on your worldview, because like the good for Christians, not necessarily good for someone who lacks a belief in God, right?
I would define good as something that increases well-being, lowers unnecessary suffering. I think a little bit of suffering is beneficial. We were just talking about that. I'm talking more gratuitous type suffering.
Mm-hmm.
We all have standards. That's a standard I would choose because it seems like it helps the most people, helps civilization. Pete, Reed, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'd say good is whatever gets us away from the worst possible misery for everyone.
That sounds a little like Sam Harris.
That does. So I want to run a thought experiment, and you can tell me where I'm wrong on it. So if that's the definition of good, and now I'm going to take it to the extreme here, or a extreme. If, say, for instance, you had, do you guys remember the incident with Erin Andrews while she went to court? She used to be at ESPN.
When somebody was like peeking in on her.
Some guy set up a.
Was he roboting for you guys?
A
Yeah.
little bit.
P, why don't
Repeat
you remind people what Erin Andrews, that situation, because you seem to remember it. I think I remember it.
I think she's a female ESPN reporter, and she was in a hotel room, and a person in the hotel room next to her put some spy cameras or something and was videotaping her like nude or something, or there was some invasion of her privacy or something, and that got leaked out onto the internet.
So, would you say that is a good thing or a bad thing?
That someone invaded her privacy?
Mm-hmm.
I would say that's a bad thing.
Now, why is it a bad thing?
Causes her suffering.
Okay. So if he had set up that camera and she never found out about it, would it have been a bad thing?
Yes.
Even if it didn't cause her any pain or suffering?
Right, because what would end up happening is we would live, other people would see that, and it would set up sort of an expectation.
What if he didn't?
Even if she never, ever saw it, but let's say it was out in the ether somewhere somehow, it sets up an expectation in society of that fear that is someone recording me right now, and that paranoia.
What if he just for his own enjoyment? Would it still be bad?
Say it again.
If he kept it for himself and nobody else's, and never distributed it, never put it on the internet, and he just kept it for himself, would it be bad?
Yeah, I would still say for the exact same reason I just said, because of that expectation that that in a society we do respect people's privacy.
Also, it's bad in the sense that he is gaining pleasure by exploiting other people's privacy, and this is a behavior that he is, that he's engaging in, and that can behavior, if he repeats this behavior over and over again, it could grow to lengths where it could eventually cause severe harm to others.
But he's not causing any pain to her. He's not causing any pain or suffering to her. He's simply recording her and keeping it to himself in the thought experiment.
That's true.
Hypothetical. So why, if he's not causing any pain, if he's not causing any suffering to her, and he's keeping it to himself, then why is that? Why is that bad? It's not like he's going in there and raping her or anything like that.
But he still had to get that tape somehow, right? And so he is.
Yeah, the camera.
What's that?
I think he set up a camera, like in a peephole or something like that, and recorded it.
So I would say it's still bad for the reason I gave.
Hypothetically, nobody else would know that he recorded it. It would just be it's just him.
Right. He would know.
I think you also have to look at it in the context of the extent of the lengths that the person is willing to go to achieve this. It's not like this took minor effort for them to achieve this for their own pleasure and their own desire, that they had to go to extensive lengths to do this. And then the worry that I have is that if someone is willing to take such egregious steps to do this, then that could be the foundation for a pattern of behavior that over the long term could inflict severe harm on others. It's like saying if this person killed another person, but no one ever knew about it. They killed someone and this person had no family, no next of kin, no nothing. No one ever knew of it. Is it a bad thing that they killed that person? Mm-hmm. Right? Well, you could make the same argument. Well, he just did it for his own pleasure. No one ever found out about it. That person's gone, expired. But if they did it for their own pleasure, the fact that it was the reason of pleasure or pleasurable experience for that person means that they are more likely, more probable to want to seek out that pleasure again.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually, you're going to reach a point where you will be unable to achieve that pleasure without inflicting harm on another individual, without somebody else finding out or without getting it exposed or something like that. So, it's kind of like the whole thing around gateway drugs, or so, the whole idea around that is that, you do it once, not really doing too much to you, no one finds out, but then you keep pushing the limit and pushing the limit, and there's no foundation for borders to be set to determine whether this should go any further or should be restricted.
So in other
Or
words,
he could just, for his own sex tape, right? Not take it to that limit. Maybe he just wants a tape of a naked Aaron Andrews and isn't going to go ahead and continue to seek out that. Maybe he doesn't establish that pattern.
but
I don't know. I'm just asking.
but he's still doing harm to himself, is what Pete's saying.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he could, in like a year or two's time, change his mind about his actions and then feel some sense of guilt for the rest of his life about it. Possible suffering there.
Yep. What was your
Okay.
second question? Was it just to me only, or was that the one just for me only?
So, and you and I, we've been around and around about parallels, and its connection to Jesus.
You're talking about mythical parallels, like with the Romulus video I just made? Oh, okay. So you have a question about that?
Not necessarily about that. Well, yeah, because there was something in there that you said. I think it was towards either the middle or the end, and he said something to the effect of, you have to look at the Christian and say, did any of these mythical figures die in some sense? Did any of these mythical figures were they brought back to life in some sense? And the answer I think you gave was yes, they did. And I don't know what the rest of the video was, but that caught my ear a little bit, because my question is, and I could be wrong about the argument that's made, but is the argument that's made that the Gospels are rehashed myths that predate them, and they simply copied and adjusted those myths and inserted them into the Gospels? Is that the argument?
You have a whole bunch of different adjectives in there that sort of put tension on each other. Rehashed and copied. Once you have something changed, it's no longer copied, right? So, at least not copied exactly. So the argument I think that most people who bring these up is saying we have general themes that were built upon. Just like you have movies built on other movies or books built on other books. Jesus was a dying and rising God built on other gods who died in some fashion and rose in some fashion. In a lot of ways, he's opposite. In some ways, he's more parallel. But that's the general point of it. And so my advice to non-Christians or atheists when they're engaging with a Christian on this topic is to keep it very simple. And if you look at that video I made, I basically agreed with almost everything inspiring philosophy said.
Yeah.
And yet his followers still got mad at me for agreeing with him. But
I wasn't mad. Yeah, I thought you did it. I thought you did that video justice.
Yeah.
As far as areas where you agree and you disagree.
But this is where I have a problem with Christians on this topic is they think that the claim is that it's supposed to be exact or very, very close. And I don't think that's the claim at all. And if you are going to make that type of claim, the better example is how the New Testament used the Old Testament. That's much better, much closer. But even then, the Jews will disagree. But yeah, so I hope does that answer your question?
So your argument isn't that it's not taking exactly from Romulus or Horus or Osiris and then inserting it into the New Testament. You're simply saying, in a very broad, general sense, it parallels some of these other
Yeah. What I'm saying is, in the minds of the people at that time, the idea of someone calling themselves a god, dying and coming back to life was not foreign. That's all the point I'm making. It wasn't unique. It wasn't off the charts, an amazing epiphany moment that, oh, a god doing this? That's never been done before. Or thought of before, let me put it that way.
Mhm.
Well,
And so
Mary is thought to be, conceived from the stories of Athena. Athena is the virgin goddess, similar to Mary, right? I guess it's along those lines.
I actually have one more question.
Okay.
That's for the group. And I asked this to Drew and Dan on Truth Wanted. Is what do you think what's the number one thing Christians get wrong or do wrong as far as stereotypes when it comes to people who lack a belief in God?
Go ahead, Pete.
I was going to say that we lack empathy for others. That we just don't care about the well-being of those around us.
What's the number one thing that Christians do to non-believers that needs to be like? What's the one thing we miss as far as when we, I guess, engage, describe, characterize, stereotype atheists? What's the number one thing that's?
What's the number one stereotype that Christians have for atheists?
Yeah.
What I said is that they would think that we lack empathy for others and the ability to feel others' pain and suffering and to to care for others, just like a Christian would think that they care for the suffering and well-being of others around them.
What do you think, Reed?
I think mainly all the criticisms believers have of atheists stems from the vocabulary based in theology. Like they think atheism is deficient in understanding theism rather than other humans not having explanations for phenomenon a separate population of humans are exhibiting. Yeah.
I didn't understand a word you said, Reed.
Let me distill it down for you, Doug. I think Reed was saying that Christians don't think that atheists can do the God talk. They can't talk the God language. They can't,
I'll talk the God
recite,
talk all night long if they want.
They're not able to talk on that level, on that frequency, right? Is that what you were getting at, Reed?
I think Christians just think of atheists as not theists, and rather than just like humans who have the same psychological and social needs, but just are able to meet these needs in secular ways rather than through theism.
I'm curious. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Doug. Give your answer.
Yeah, I don't think there's one. Like, it depends on different people. Because I could say one stereotype is that atheists hate God, but I honestly believe there are some atheists out there who are bitter and hate at least the concept of this God. Another one is I get time and time again, oh, you were never a real Christian, you never had a real relationship, or so forth. And in one sense, I agree with them. In another sense, no, I truly believed I did. Some will even go so far as that you worship the devil, or you're under the power of Satan.
Hedonists.
Under the power of Satan, which actually, if you're an evangelical Christian, you should believe that, because that's what it teaches, that you're under the power of the evil one. So, or that the church hurt them, and that's why they're an atheist. If only
You're an atheist because you had daddy problems.
daddy problems, or you saw too many hypocrites in the church. And I'll grant that there's probably some atheists out there who that's actually right, that they were hurt in the church, and that maybe they do have daddy problems, and maybe they did see too many hypocrites. But in my case, that's not the case at all. So I don't know.
Answers.
One thing I get from my family is you're just going through a phase. So, but Dean, as a Christian,
Yeah.
I mean, atheists, so I think you might have a different opinion. But what is your take on what the biggest Christian stereotype of atheists?
Yeah. I would agree with pretty much everything that you guys have said. I think probably the number one, I guess in my mind, would be, and this is going to sound really cliche, and this is just across the board, the worst thing that Christians do is we identify all the people that are drowning, but we don't try and go in and save them. So, like, for instance, in evangelical Christianity, evangelical Christianity says, homosexuality is wrong, therefore anybody who practices homosexuality is going to hell. And so people stand up and they say, all these people over here are going to hell, but rarely have I seen, just in my time as a minister, rarely have I seen an overt effort to try and engage that community. And I think that's hypocritical, because if you're saying that somebody's lost and you're identifying the lost, and then you say your job is to save them, you should at least make the effort to engage them. So I think that's the same, that would hold true with atheists. It's easy for Christians to say that all the atheists are going to hell, and they're wrong and they don't know anything. But I don't know too many people in my area that would engage or do engage atheists. So I think that's probably the number one thing. I think the second thing would probably be.
But is it a stereotype? Is that a stereotype of atheists? It seemed like you gave a stereotype of Christians.
Oh, I thought you were asking me about Christians towards atheists.
No, I'm asking as a Christian, and I don't want your opinion, because you know atheists, but
Gotcha.
Other Christians, what do you think their biggest stereotype of an atheist is?
So what's the biggest stereotype of Christians towards atheists? Is that what you're asking?
What is the biggest stereotype that Christians have for atheists? Like what if you just took one of your parishioners, one of your closest Christian friends, and you asked them, "Wow, I know this. What do you think of atheists?" What do you think the first thing would come to mind? Right? Is it like you said for homosexuals, something that, oh, these are people who are damned and going to hell?
Yeah. It's probably the biggest stereotype is, well, they never. They either never really knew God or really don't know God, and if they did, then they would be Christians.
Yeah, because who can reject that truth, right? Who can reject that love and that experience and the truth of it, of that hope and meaning? I totally get that. Why it blows their mind.
Well, there's a bunch of people in the New Testament that did.
You brought up an interesting point, though, when you said, Christians can be hypocritical in that they think these people are damned and they think they should be saved, but they don't want to jump in the water and save them. Do you think that's because they're worried that if they did that they might get sucked into that stereotype as well? So,
I think that's a legitimate concern for some people, but I'm of the of the persuasion that if you're going to claim that you've got ultimate truth, then you also have to be confident enough to think that that's not going to be shaken. It doesn't make much sense in my mind to say Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life, and nobody comes to the Father except through Him, and then say, "Well, I'm scared to go. I'm lose the way, or I might lose the way, the truth, the life, all that stuff." Does that make sense? Like, it doesn't compute to me in my mind for Christians to say that they have the truth and then fail to engage people because they're scared that they might lose their faith.
What, like, Reed fairly well. You've probably seen some of his videos. You know Pete a little bit. You know me probably the best. Like, what do we need to be saved from? What are we lost about?
So,
like, to cut through all the, excuse my language, to cut through all the crap. Really, we're talking about hell here, right?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that's the number one answer, and I think that's something that, if you're going to be consistent with the text of Scripture, then yeah, you'd have to say that.
Yeah, and I just wish Christians would just admit that this is what it's about. It's about eternal life, going to heaven, not going to hell, or it's like Pete has tremendous earning power. He doesn't have to pray to have his electric bill paid. Reed is a very well-off dude. He's smart, intelligent, good-looking. I'm all right. It's like we're all three of us moral guys. We would never hurt a flea. I'm sure you would maybe even trust us with your kids. Well, maybe not, but it's like, what in the world do we need to be saved from? And if the answer is not, the only good answer I can think of is hell. And so really what you need to do is you need to convince guys like us that hell's real and exists. And until you can do that, we're just fine.
No, I see what you're saying, Doug, but so
if I could just jump in, Dean, are you even fully convinced that hell is real and exists, or is just the prospect of it being real enough to
no, I think it's real.
What's that?
I think it's real. There you go. There's my answer. It's real.
No, because I could see a situation where someone, just the thought of it, whether someone just doesn't know if it's actually real or not, just the concept of it is enough to alter their behavior to act in a way as if it is real, even though if they're not even fully sure that it exists or not. But it just seems such a terrible concept that I don't want to play with fire here.
No, I got you.
Pun intended.
I'm actually. It's funny that Doug brings up hell. It's actually we're on a teaching rotation at church for Sunday morning, and I missed out on heaven, so I got stuck with hell. So that's what I'm teaching on Sunday morning for class. Chipper.
Wow.
Like,
probably low for that.
What I just said to you, I would say applies to Pete, Reed, and myself, but not all people. Like, I do understand that some people have this existential angst, and some people need that basis. They need to be able to say something's always, always, always wrong. And if they can't say that, then their world falls apart. I do understand that people need to believe that life goes on forever after you die. And if it doesn't, well, then what? I might as well just off myself. Like, I do understand there's people out there like that. But Reed, Pete, and myself are not like that. We are quite peaceful, content. We have goals. We love. We're human beings who don't have those needs. We're not needy people. And so for a Christian to say you need to accept Jesus to save you from your sins so you can have eternal life, No, it's
So, so you would say that Christians then are needy people?
yes.
Okay.
It's even scriptural.
I think I think each of you are defining needy differently here, though. I, I think what Doug is trying to say is that
No.
there is a
You saw Dean nod his head in agreement when I said it's scriptural. He knows what I'm talking about. The Bible even says that it's the world views Christians as foolishness, and that's to be expected, and that that God chooses the weakest to exalt to the highest. The last shall be first. He knows exactly what I'm talking about. So by definition, as the scripture, as the New Testament teaches, yes, Christians are the neediest of them all.
So I guess my question is like, you would view that neediness then, Doug, as you would automatically say that that's not automatically. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but would you say that that then is a deficiency, a weakness?
Yeah.
You think that's a weakness?
Yeah, I'm going to be very honest. One of my
I
biggest
want you to lie.
one of my biggest pet peeves in life is codependency, and I see a lot of Christians, not all, but I see a lot of Christians as codependent on Jesus, and they would even admit that. Like they'd say, "Yeah, I'm dependent on Jesus. Of course I am. He's my source of my life, my hope, everything." But even when I see people interact with other people and they're just clinging and hanging on and need them for every, it's just like, oh, it's the most repulsive thing I've ever, I experienced in my life is that type of codependency. I was raised on a farm, like self-sufficiency, like you live or die on your own, sort of you sink or swim. It's like, so yeah, it's not a very attractive trait to me, is that codependency.
You've got to be a Republican then. I'm just kidding.
I'm Canadian, so I can't vote in this country.
I'm messing with you. I'm just messing with you.
No, but I
He's
lean
not
right.
Republican.
I admit I lean right. Like I'm not scared to have other atheists kind of be upset with me about politics. I would never have voted for Trump. But on most issues, like I think Reed has taken a test. I've taken a test. We all did it one night in a private peer, and I'm more right than any of my peers.
Let me ask you this, Doug. Who do you think that I voted for?
I have no idea. Just the fact that you're asking the question means you probably didn't vote for Trump.
If you had to guess.
Jill Stein.
No.
Ron Paul. Was he even running? I don't know.
I wrote in his son, Rand.
Oh, okay. I was close.
There you go. Because I was just repulsed by both candidates. You know how bad it is? Do you know how bad it gets sometimes when you talk politics in the church and you're not in favor of the Republican?
Politics is almost worse than religion. Like
Well, how do you deal with that?
How do I deal with that?
Yeah.
I'm probably more libertarian in a lot of the views that I have politically than anything else. But I usually just shoot straight. I say, listen, it is what it is, and as a Christian, you're not beholden to your idol, and your God can't be politics. Can't be. And that's actually my biggest fear for the church is, because of its, I have no problem saying that Donald Trump is a repulsive person. I have no problem saying that. He is. It's clear that he is. And my fear is that he's not only going to bring down the Republican Party because of his actions, but he's also going to bring down the church because there's so many evangelicals who just were so repulsed by Hillary that they hitched their wagon to Donald Trump, and it's just a bad deal.
Okay.
And so I deal with it by saying, if Jesus says, in effect, in Matthew chapter 25, that salvation language there is on how you treated those who were in prison, how you treated the poor, how you've clothed the naked, then that's how we should live, and that's how we should treat people, regardless of what political affiliations or political party we might be a part of.
What would happen if every member of your church saw this live stream where you just said that Trump's a repulsive person? Would they agree with you, or would they start to hate you?
I guess, Sonia, it's probably a 70-30 split that they would disagree to, or that they would disagree with what.
Okay.
Yes, they.
I think it's a good rule
But
of thumb.
I don't particularly care, whether someone likes what I've said about the president or not from the pulpit. I've said things from when they had the big Syria refugee issue, and we're about to have a caravan come through. When the Syrian refugee issue came up, there were a bunch of people at Gastonia that were like, we can't turn them away, or we have to turn them away because of this, that, and the other. and I just mentioned Matthew chapter 25. What you've done to the least of these is what you've done to me. Mentioned the Good Samaritan, things like that, and said, listen, it's not a matter about whether you're Democrat or Republican. It's okay if we're going to say that we're Christian, and we're going to say that our job or our obligation to people is to treat them with the love that we claim that Jesus has treated us with, then this isn't a difficult issue. This isn't a hard issue.
Do you think that, so to me it sounds like you are experiencing a level of hypocrisy amongst the members of the church? Right? Their texts say to do one thing, but in the real world they're turning a blind eye to other things to meet some sort of agenda or to promote their cause or whatever it is.
And that's a reason why a lot of young people are leaving, is because of that.
Do you think that this hypocrisy is new because of a person like Donald Trump, or was that hypocrisy always there?
That's a good point.
And
I think
I'm just acutely aware to it now because it's so blatant. But what was it there the entire time?
Well, you're always, no matter what group you belong to, you're always going to have hypocrites, right? So it's not just exclusive to the Christian faith. I think the danger that I see, from a political science perspective, and also a Christian perspective, is there are so many people now that are going to associate evangelical Christianity with the mantra and mannerisms of Trump, that as unattractive as the church might have been in the past, it's going to be further magnified by the association with Trump.
Well, you've heard it here first, folks. Dean Meadows thinks that Donald Trump is the Antichrist.
Well, I have an interesting view about the Antichrist anyway, so it's not your traditional evangelical viewpoint.
There's a lot of questions to you, Dean, in the live stream, but can you answer?
Yeah, what's up?
Can you answer as quickly as possible, or as short as possible?
Yeah, I will. I'll do the best I can.
Do you think you need Jesus to treat people with respect?
That's a good question. Do I think I need Jesus to treat people with respect? No, I don't think you need Jesus to treat people with respect. Hey, hold up, my kid's beaver is going off.
I think it's a good rule of thumb to say something that will make your in-group upset with you at least once a month.
Yeah, that's good.
I want to know if Dean's willing to go to a gay bar.
How do you know he hasn't already?
He could have. Well, he just said that, he finds it hypocritical that they see these people who are damned to hell, but yet they don't want to go after them to help them or whatever. So shouldn't Christians be hanging out at gay bars all the time?
You've got a monitor that's set up to where if our kid stops breathing, it beeps, but sometimes they crawl to the edge and it beeps. So
Okay.
I'm not going to make sure that the kid was breathing. So
Everybody's breathing. We're good.
yeah, everyone's good. So no, I don't think you need Jesus to treat people with respect. No.
Another question was, and I don't remember exactly how it was phrased, but you know that Honduras caravan coming up through Mexico towards the United States?
Yeah.
WWJD. What would Jesus do?
What would you do? Let him in.
But they're rapists, they're murderers, they're criminals. There's Middle Easterners in there that are coming in. Dean,
Yeah.
really?
Let him in.
Just let them in?
Yeah, they're seeking asylum, from what I understand.
If all 6.7 billion like remaining population of the Earth wanted to get into the landmass of the U.S., what would Jesus do?
Let him in.
Okay. Wow.
Sink the rowboat. We'll go down together.
Yeah, let him in.
I got in huge trouble with a very compassionate, kind, caring, loving friend of ours. She works for an immigration organization, and she's using, and Dean, this is my problem with her. She's using the Bible to justify social justice. She's saying, look, this Jesus would let these immigrants in, so we as a nation should let these more immigrants in. And I said, you have to be so careful if you're going to bring God into this, because it's going to come back to bite you. And sure enough, I think a week after, one of the senators said use scripture, in fact, Romans 13, I think, to show that, oh no, God has put into power the governments to adjudicate these things. And if the government says no more refugees, then as a Christian, you should say no more refugees. You submit to the governing authorities. And then I went back to her and said, look, this is what I'm talking about, right? Why not just say, I prefer we let immigrants in, refugees in, for compassionate reasons and for empathetic reasons. But once you start putting God in the mix, these problems happen.
Well, I would suggest that the senator that used Romans 13 butchered it to a certain degree.
Dean, here's a hypothetical. What if, in order for these people to get let in, or a certain number of them, the only place they could go is your house, and you would have to give up your home and your job so that they could have your home and your job? Would you still let them in?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, because here's the thing. I mean,
you can't live in your home. Your family has to leave your home, find somewhere else to go.
I've got other places to go.
Any other place that you have to go, that's where they have. That's where
Let's just
to go.
So, do my kids have cancer too? I mean, how bad are we going to make the scenario?
Yeah.
I don't think your kids have to have cancer in this scenario.
We got to keep this.
No, I mean,
we got to keep this moving. Christy Santiago asked Dean, "What's your favorite book in the Bible and why?" I'm going to predict you're going to say the book of
Type it.
John, the book of Gospel of John.
nope. My favorite book of the Bible is actually, it's two of them together. It's 1st and 2nd Timothy.
Oh, okay. Why?
I think because Paul's writing, depending on who you think wrote 1st and 2nd Timothy, right? The author's writing to a young guy in a big city, and first letter is a book of encouragement, and the second letter is a call back to remembering who he was and what his roots were. And
Ronald asks you, are Jews going to heaven?
are Jews going to heaven? No.
Not even Abraham?
Was Abraham a Jew?
He was the first one, I guess. Technically. Well, actually, Isaac was.
He was a patriarch.
Yeah. So you don't think Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, all those guys are in heaven right now, or will go to heaven?
No, they are. No, they are. They're in Hebrews 11 says that they're in paradise.
Okay.
But as far as Orthodox Jews,
So what I'm hearing you say, it's possible to go to heaven without knowing the name of Jesus.
I think given the covenants that were there, I think it's at least something that's alluded to. But actually, Hebrews 11 says that Abraham was actually the gospel in the Old Testament. Hebrews 11, Hebrews 12.
Okay, I think that's all the questions.
Okay.
So why don't you go
Plus
back?
Christ's sacrifice retroactive.
Why don't you go to bed, because we have a Wiccan who wants on.
Wiccan sounds good. All right, guys. Thanks.
We want
See you,
to.
Dean.
I want him to put a curse on me. Have a good night, Dean.
All right, guys.
It's Halloween.
Come on in, Shades of Cascades. Was that his name?
Is it Wiccan or Wizard? I'm really hoping it's Wizard.
Well, Wiccan is the name of the religion.
So I guess it's sorcery is involved in, are wizards sorcerers?
I'm super hungry.
Me too. I have to pee as well, but I got this empty cup.
Is that vitamin water?
Yeah, I better not mix it up, because I have lemon flavored vitamin water. That would be bad if I mixed it up. Shades, you can come on.
Might do a Postmates.
Question for the Christian: what is the ultimate spiritual meaning of Adam's rib being removed? I actually did that. I wasn't joking. On one of my live streams, I dared a witch or a wizard to I said, make a doll of me, but don't tell me you're doing it, and poke needles.
Stick needles in the crotch.
Yeah.
Right in the crotch.
And I put a time limit on it. I said, do this week. And I seriously Christians could never do this. A lot of Christians could never do this, because they seriously believe this is real stuff, that this is that the spiritual realm is going to hurt them possibly. So this is how much I'm basically saying, this is how much I don't believe this. I dare you to curse and just, you can't touch me physically, but I dare you to try to put as much harm on me as you can with merely your thoughts.
That's the week you got gonorrhea?
You were waiting for me to finish so you could use that line.
Yes.
You didn't click it, Shades. Click the link again, because I don't see you. You clicked it earlier, but then I think there's a time limit, so you re-click it.
Are there Satanists who actually believe in a true Satan?
I'm sure there are. I don't know of any, but most people who are members of the Satanic Temple, that online, they don't believe in the spiritual realm.
Right, that's why I'm asking. Like they use it more as just like theatrical type thing to make a point. But are there people who actually believe that Satan is real and worship a real divine figure of Satan?
Okay, Shades is going to try again. Invite Satan himself onto the show if you dare.
Welcome. We invite you. We invoke you, Metastasis.
Okay. Have a burrito en route.
Or Sagan. Should we hail Sagan?
I've invited Jesus onto my show, literally. Jesus, if you're real, have a seat. Come talk to us. I'm willing.
Jesus, come.
I'm willing.
Speak to the Dark Lord.
I'm willing to do that to Satan as well. Satan, if you're real, pay us a visit. I don't want to do too much foreshadowing here, but we're doing a video this Sunday with Cam and a guy named Camille, and I have a clip ready of Michael Lacona, and he's telling a story of people playing with Ouija boards and metal things sticking to the side of the wall. I think it was during his debate with Matt Dillahunty. And I'm going like, seriously, you believe this really happened? Honestly, like, I would love to see that. Why is it that these things don't happen to guys like Reed, Pete, and me? Like, is it because our faith is so low in the spiritual realm that they just, like, are these spirits scared of us that they would never show themselves? And like, I have a glass right in front of me here. Like, move it. Jesus, Satan, whoever, spiritual realm, move it. They won't.
You ever see the old prank phone call where Satan calls a shoe store and asks for all their souls? I want your souls.
See, this is the thing, though. Like, if there's Christians, most Christians who are very conservative, who may be watching, they just clicked off because they're feeling uncomfortable. And so I shouldn't be talking like this. But I'm dead serious. There's Christians that are uncomfortable with talking jokingly like this about spirits because they think, Doug, just you wait. You're going to get hurt.
Shades, I think, might be using the wrong browser.
You're clicking the appear link?
He was.
Try using, if you're using Safari, it might not work. You might want to use like a Chrome or Firefox.
I think he was in here earlier. Maybe that was Craig. Craig Reed, did you try to get in earlier? Someone was waiting while Dean was here, but then he went away.
Someone else can also try clicking it just as a test. They don't have to come on the air.
Is he on a computer or his phone?
Oh, hang on. We got someone.
Bring, bring. Hello.
Let's see. Hang on. Hi. Are you who I think you are?
Yes, Shades of Cascades.
Okay. So what should we call you, Shades, or do you want to use a different name?
Shades is fine. I don't mind that.
Okay. So tell everybody you're a wizard.
If it was only that cool, I could run around with that tattooed on my forehead. No, my tradition is more classical witchcraft. Wiccan is a good catch-all term. It's a term everybody understands, less explanation. It works.
Okay. So do you honestly believe you can hurt people or help people through spells and stuff? Are you that type of guy? Wiccan guy?
I don't think I have it in me to hurt people. I think it's more from within. So I couldn't hurt anybody. I just don't have that in me. That's why I left the military. I don't have that kind of thing in me. As far as I can help people, I think to a very limited degree, I could possibly do some good. It's more neutral. It's not like black magic, white magic. That's not how I hold. Some do, I don't. So I think that if I have good intentions, I will have good results. Is as good a way as I can put it.
Well, sorry, go ahead, Rick.
It sounds like The Secret. Like, think about.
Yeah, I remember when The Secret got big. That was back when I was a Christian, back when The Secret got big. It's a little more work than just have good thoughts, and that's all, and that's all it takes. For me, it does take, you have to refine your craft. You have to use the right materials. You have to, have the right tools. So it's not as simple as just that. The Secret is one of those things where it's like, all you have to do is think, and now you're doing good. It's kind of like, it's a very lazy way to think about it.
So Secret people are just lazy. They need to get their shit together and put some stuff together, like physically.
It's kind of like one of the, it's like a hashtag, right? You see, like hashtag, help our troops, hashtag save the women, and now that I've done that, I raised awareness. I've done so much good in the world. And I think The Secret had a lot of that with, you're a good person. You think good things. You're helping people, So I think it's more in that vein, I would say.
So it's not like you can cast a spell on someone to give them good fortune? I don't know much about Wiccan, so I'm just trying to understand. So,
It,
so
it,
is it? I can think good things about people, and my behavior can alter towards them, and hopefully, it creates an atmosphere, an environment where positive things tend to happen to them more than not. Or is it? I'm going to think of some spell in my mind, or verbally say it, or whatever, and that good positive things are going to happen to that person because I've just cast that spell.
it's I take a more hands-on view that I have to actually make the effort to do it. The thing that, to more fundamental point, is that like witches, like we're like atheists, we're a herd of cats, right? It's hard to put all of us under one umbrella. So like you could get I could believe one thing and another witch could believe something completely different. It's just kind of the nature of the beast. Personally, I would say that, like, so for example, if I wanted good fortune to come to somebody, right, I do believe that through thoughtful spellcraft and obviously a lot of trial and error, I could at least create an environment where good things could be more likely to happen. It's not, like, pull the arm, see the lever move, that I cast a spell, the good thing happened. Obviously with anything in the world, in the universe, there's going to be trial and error. There's going to be things you don't understand, and you're just not as effective as you think you are. We're never as good at witches as we think we
are. What's the difference between casting a spell and praying?
So praying, now the way I interpret praying is you are asking a divinity to intervene on your behalf, or, whereas spell casting, I'm trying to manipulate something in the world. So for example, some witches believe that, like, a lot of your atheistic witches believe that, you're trying to manipulate some kind of energy, some kind of force in the universe. Whereas, praying is more like, I am supplanting myself. I am putting myself in a submissive position to a god, and hopefully will intervene on my behalf.
So spell casting, like almost like a form of telepathy?
I'm not saying someone doesn't have that idea. I think you're more, and again, the area I'm from, where the mountains where I'm from, it's more of, at least with us, it was more in the sense of, I'm going to try to manipulate something in the world directly. It's not so much, I'm in your mind. It's, I'm going to try to influence the space around you. I would try to hopefully to where good things happen in your mind, give you a more positive attitude. Not that my brain is influencing your brain. It's that there's something out there that I would like to manipulate, even if I can't put a name on it.
So I'm having a hard time differentiating between this being a process where a person thinks they have some sort of inherent sort of energy power that they can, bestow onto someone, or, alter someone's reality. Or is it something as simple as, like, I want something positive to happen to somebody, so I'm going to go to their house and, like, clean their house for them. So now they're in a clean, more positive environment, and they'll have a more positive frame of mind because of that.
Oh yeah, I definitely see what you're saying. And I mean, obviously, I think any good, you would try to do both. It's like, like a Christian would say, if you have a headache, you would pray, but you still take the aspirin, right? I think it's more in the sense of, I'm going to, like, I think to most of us, either whether you do deity worship or whether you do energy manipulation or however you would call it, I'm trying to use the tools I have at hand to manipulate something in your world, something where you're at. And then I think success is more or less dictated on how good you are, how well you determine the situation, how good you're using your tools, and whether the person even wants that to happen in the first place.
Okay. Is there Wiccanism, or being Wiccan, require the use of, like, gems and stones or other, like, are those also thought to have inherent sort of energy powers and things? I know nothing about it. I'm just trying to, what I'm thinking about is totally stereotypical, and I apologize for that, but
it's fine. It's I think the struggle when you talk to polytheists of any kind is we don't have the same orthodoxy that Christians do. Whenever, it's like I told, or like I commented on something Doug said, where street epistemologists try to get at our orthodoxy, and there just isn't one. You could be a solitary witch where I'm not in a coven. I don't, like, I work it as I go. I discover it purely on my own. I don't believe that, gems and crystals, I don't get into crystal magic just because I don't it hasn't done much for me, and it's really, really deep. It's really complicated. I'm not saying it couldn't. I don't know that. I know it doesn't work for me, but I couldn't say what it could do for somebody else.
What's been your success rate with whatever you do?
I think like with anything else, the more I work at it, the better I get. Again, as far as how it affects somebody else, I kind of run my spells like experiments, and for example, I'll follow up with the person. Hey, did you feel this? How did this happen? Some spells I'm better at than others. Spells on myself, just because I'm such a head case, I'd probably do a little worse. But spells as far as trying to help others, because I think that's what's in my heart, or heart, the way we think of heart, what's in my spirit. I think I'm better at those because I tend to have better success rates when I go to my grimoire and I tend to say, this is the spell, this is how it worked, this is the outcome. And I notice a general improvement. But again, spells where I try to help others, I think are probably what I'm best at.
Could you indulge us and maybe cast a spell on Doug for us, just to see how this process works? I'm very curious about this. I don't know how. I don't know if you can do that.
So
I don't know if that's
I'm in
possible.
my car, so I don't have most of my tools with me.
Is there
and to what you guys were
spell casting that doesn't require tools, or I mean, what that we could try on test on Doug?
If there is such a way to do it, I haven't discovered it. Okay. It's one of those things. I feel like.
What are the tools that are involved?
I don't keep those with me generally. I feel like you're James Randi and I'm that James Hydrick guy. Like, once I put the foam around the paper, you can't blow the page. I do feel like that right now. But yeah, I could say that if I worked at it enough, I could manipulate something out there. But again, I haven't worked at it and I don't have that kind of skill, so I don't think I could.
I was just asking in terms of, like, you mentioned tools. Like, I have no clue what that means. So, like, what are the tools? Are they books? Are they? I don't know. What are the tools?
Sure. So all I can tell you is what I use. There was a coven I was a part of a couple of years ago where they used some different stuff. I mostly use. It has to be natural for the most part. For example, my Aphame, which is spiritual, which is like a dagger that's used in spellcraft, is strictly iron. There's no plastic on it. I try to keep it as many natural parts as possible. I use sticks. I use grass. I use sea salt, water, a lot of elemental stuff. That's a good stereotype that I'd probably follow. Candles, definitely incense. I mean, my house just reeks of incense constantly, to the chagrin of my roommate. So yeah, those are kind of the fundamentals, the basics. A lot of people use those. Some use crystals, some use gems. Not my thing. So that's like a basic, like my Shades of Cascades Witch Kit 101 would have those things in them.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
Sure.
Doug?
Well, I don't know what to say. To me, it sounds like what's the name of that group of people who go in the cars and they have the funny hats? Maybe you don't have them in the U.S., but in Canada, the Shriners. Have you ever heard of the Shriners?
Oh, okay. I saw them around when I lived in.
Hospital for kids.
No.
The commercials on TV, the Shriners hospitals, where they have the fezzes. They wear their fez.
Okay, and Shades, please don't take any offense, but to me it sounds like a community-driven belief system that has unique aspects, and it's because of those unique aspects is what keeps the community together. And it's really interesting, really fun, and it brings you meaning and purpose because you feel like you're helping people at the same time.
Yeah, first, I think as far as stereotypes that are fit, most of us are loners, Doug. There's not a lot of, especially where I lived, when I lived in West Virginia, there's not a lot of witches running around. So most of us, were solitary. Most of us did our own thing. We were individuals. We find it on our own.
You realize I could have said a really nice joke there. You set me up with witches running around, like you meant flying around, right? It's like, never mind.
No plastic broomsticks. Plastic broomsticks don't work. They have to be wood. That's the only way it works.
Well, you could use iron broomsticks, but then they're not as economically viable because they're hard on fuel.
Not as aerodynamic. They're not as good in that regard. Plus, you gotta tie it together with something. Wood's easier to tie the corn to as opposed to iron. So your broom design is very poor, Doug.
But you don't really believe that, like, if you were to do a spell or whatever, a positive spell for someone that someone gave you a picture of someone who lives 6,000 miles away. Like, do you really believe you could actually change their life from what you're doing and thinking 6,000 miles away, and they don't even know you're doing it? Like, do you really believe that?
I don't think I could. Now, I can't speak for anyone else. I don't think I could. I generally only cast spells for my friends because I know them. I ask them, "Hey, are you okay if I do this kind of thing?" You couldn't say, "Hey, this is so and so. He lives in Uganda. Cast a spell and make his life better." I don't. If it is possible, it's not possible for me. I don't think I'm that gifted. I don't think I'm that good.
Do you think
so? I can only
somebody
speak
could
for
do
myself.
that? Like, somebody in the world you think can do that?
I can't rule it out. I think there are some things humans aren't likely capable of. Like, for example, necromancy is kind of like everyone's go-to. Could you, like, necromancers? I don't think humans are capable of that. Obviously, I don't think we are. I think there are some things humans can't do. So, that could be one of them.
Do you think that you could train yourself to a point where you think you could affect another individual that's a great distance from you?
I don't think I could, but to answer your broader question, could someone do it? I think given enough time, you possibly could. Obviously, I don't think human lifespan's long enough. Just because I think we have to understand that we kind of work in the margins. We aren't. It's not capable. I don't think humans can really do that.
How would you know if? So let's say, since you don't think you have the ability, but say a friend of yours claims they do, and they thought for an event or something to happen to somebody who's on the other side of the planet, and we find out that that person on the other side of the planet experienced this event. How do we determine if them experience that event was just by random chance, or was in fact due to the influence that your friend says that they imposed on this thing to happen?
Sure. I would say run an experiment. Now, the way that a witch might do an experiment's a little bit different, obviously. I like Doug's confidence system. So if we ran an experiment where we know the background, for example, for your example, if I thought that I wanted this event to occur, we'd have to take into event, was the event likely to occur already? It's like when Christians talk about prophecies, Israel will have its own state. Well, if people work at that for 2,000 years, it's reasonable to believe it's going to happen. So I think you have to take the background knowledge into effect when you run your experiment. And then obviously, if something is hold on. Yeah, I would say that you would have to design an experiment in a way that's consistent. And then if you get inconsistent data, or if you get, kind of like mixed results, I would err on the side of it's probably not the case, because that is kind of out there.
This is great. I love
most.
Shades, I love your answer there. Think of your last spell. What do you think is the probability of it just happening on your own without the spell?
Let me see. What was the last one I did was a housewarming, which that's a different style. I would think that the background probability was neutral, if that makes sense. I don't think there was too much working one way or the other. So I would say it likely to have more of an effect.
50-50?
Yeah, I guess if that's what neutral works for in this context. Yeah, and also being a housewarming, I don't know everything about where a person lives. I don't know if the house down the street's a crack house. I don't know if
What do you mean by
you
housewarming?
know. A couple friends of mine just moved into a new place, and in our tradition, it's housewarming is more like we wish to have the house be, the house can be a place of where they can work, a place where they can, in our sense, where to kind of cleanse it. I get cleansing's a decent, I think, a term that we can all understand, of anything that might be, really negative. That maybe the house can be a place where they can be protected and they can be themselves without a lot of outside influence.
Okay. How can you tell if you failed or succeeded?
You have to follow up. I think in housewarming it's difficult because you're talking about other people. So when I follow up, I'm not getting all the data I would like, all the info I would like. But I know I called her a couple weeks ago, like, hey, how's it going? How's everything going? Then they tell me how they're doing, and then I take that into account, go to my grimoire, write it down, and then kind of keep following up afterwards. And then eventually, after a time, I think life is going to set in and kind of have whatever course it will. But yeah, you have to follow up, you have to ask questions, you have to see how they're doing, you have to go from there, and then write it down.
Okay.
Reed, you look like you're really like you're buried in like a good science textbook. Like I can see the wheels turning really hard.
I mean, if I had abilities to manipulate reality using spells, I'd like to have that ability. I would just like to be able to test that ability. And that's
and when I say an experiment, oh, I'm sorry. When I say run an experiment, it's not, it's obviously not a scientific, experiment, but I try to emulate it as best I can. So, like I said, when I cast a spell, obviously each consequent casting of that particular spell, I write it down, I write a date, and then, any language that I've changed, other from the main baseline, did I change the tools I used? Did I change language? And then the results I write off to the side, and then I try to narrow down what makes what work.
So if you see a result, does this also do you also introduce an element of reproducibility in here?
Sure. So a spell that I would do a lot, obviously I would if I have element A, B, and C, and I produce element D, I would like to continue that going forward. You would like to see elements A, B, and C produce element D. That's a consistency I'd like to see.
If you don't see that consistency, is that enough to tell you that? Are you convinced? Is that enough to convince you that A, B, and C are not working and not good?
Yeah, if I get a lot of because again, this happened a lot when I tried gem and crystal magic. I would get a lot of really inconsistent results, a lot of stuff all across the board. I had a hard time getting variables I could select to control for. And then I was always back to the drawing board. This can't be right, back to the drawing board. So I've experienced that directly. Because especially it can be really hard to select variables in a lot of cases.
So you said that you haven't experienced these results yourself yet, because I feel like you said you don't have these skills yet, or you don't think you can obtain these skills. The others that you say do have these skills, how are you able to validate their skills? Is it purely through their own interpretation of their results, or are outside individuals allowed to assess whether their outcomes are legitimate or not?
I know dead air is not good. I'm processing this because I know.
No. Dead air is great.
Yeah, as long as there's gears turning, then that's fine. My point is that is it, if I have a friend that says, oh, I cast this spell and this had this outcome and I'm doing it over and over and over again, is that enough to convince you that they have this ability, or would you require some other form of validation to verify that they do indeed have this, some outside form of validation that this is a true effect that is being seen here.
Okay, yeah, I think I get where you're going. So I think it depends on what you're casting. So like if I'm casting spells to affect just myself, like for example, like if I'm trying to improve my mood, or if I'm trying to make myself, more appealing to others, that's something that you. Okay, I'm actually crossing spells right there. Things that are purely internal, like affecting my mood, that's something that I couldn't expect someone else to really have an idea of that. But now we'll turn it to 11. If somebody says I have the power to raise the dead, they have a very specific end in mind, and that's something that can be tested, and I would like to see that. It's like Doug, I think you hit it right on the head in the past, where you had said, if somebody says in the name of Vishnu and they raise the dead, and then someone says the name of God and they don't raise the dead, Vishnu appears to be the variable that we can test for. Yeah. Now, obviously, something like raising the dead, you would go a little bit deeper than that. But yeah, I think if somebody claimed that I could manipulate for your tech, you could manipulate something like technology, and they said, and I do this and I have the effect, obviously I would want to see their results. If do they tabulate their grimoire the way I do, where they keep the elements, they control for certain variables. Those are things I would like to see, and then see the results. So I think oh, go ahead.
Here's something that would raise my confidence. If you put a blank piece of paper in like a safe deposit box, and then you had a random number generator at your house, and you did some type of spell and had that number show up on that blank piece of paper 3 times in a row to 6-digit places, that would raise my confidence.
Yeah, I think that's not the kind of reality and manipulation I think me or even anyone is capable of.
No.
So and I can see Reed, especially from what I've seen in the chat, because it's like I said about you, Doug and Cam. You're the id, Doug's the ego, and Cam's the superego. So I remember something you had said which is manipulation of reality, and that's something you had hit really hard on. And it's funny because one thing that lowers my confidence I don't credit you for this, Doug, but like Doug would say, something that lowers my confidence is that I can only seem to work in the margins. I can seem to work in things that are malleable, things like my mind, my mood, my spirit, as it were, and that lowers my confidence that, it would be cool if I could, manipulate reality, like physical matter in that way. That would be really cool. I don't think I can, and I don't know where I don't know where the line between what I can do and what I can't do. So that lowers my confidence, for example.
Okay, guys, speed round. So you've been doing very well, Shades, at keeping your answers fairly concise and to the point. But now I want you to go even like 10-second answers, because there's quite a few questions, or at least 3 or 4. Brother John asks you...
Oh, I'm sure there are.
Brother John asks, do you have any sacred text? If so, what?
None.
Okay. Next question is, does the Wiccan believe in a delineation between black magic and white magic? Do they draw a line between white and black magic? And if so, does he believe that using black magic causes karmic retribution against the spellcaster?
So he's talking about the rule of 3. I think most hold to that. Some don't, as far as the distinction between black and white magic. Some believe that some spells are inherently black and white. Others believe it's based on your intention. Very
good. Iron Charioteer asks, is there any form of empirical measurement in its craft? I think you just answered that. You go back, like with the housewarming, you go back and you see if there's been any changes and so forth, right?
Yeah, empirical as far as like numbers and data, I not that I'm aware of. It's more of like a survey. It's closer empirical to a survey. I think a closer analog.
Okay. Silhouette asks, who's the most powerful witch you know, or wizard, I guess, that has the most effective spellcasting
My ex-girlfriend.
Skills? Your ex-girlfriend.
My ex-girlfriend. My ex-girlfriend was the high priestess of my last coven, so she's the most powerful I'm aware of. And I lived in a hodunk town in West Virginia, so I don't know a lot.
So your ex-girlfriend was a witch.
Is that a little dangerous to have an ex-girlfriend that's a witch?
No, and I'm not even going for like the comedy line. Like, my ex was the high priestess of our last coven, and she was as powerful as our little group got. So
I think a lot of guys would call their ex-girlfriends, depending on the situation, a witch.
they become scarier when you actually believe in witchcraft. They become a whole lot scarier.
Matthew Huss asks, Did Shades leaving Christianity push you into Wicca? And does he think he'd be a Wiccan if he grew up atheist?
Question one, no, I had a period where I was indifferent and I just kind of wasn't concerned with religion in general after I left Christianity. Question two, I don't think I would have had the same experiences, so I lean towards possibly not. I would have met different people, so I think it's very up in the air.
Ronald makes a comment. Shades, you seem like a nice dude. Knock yourself out. But if you have any powers other than natural, you got to start by going to children's hospitals.
Yes, yes. And that, again, that also lowers my confidence. The fact that, we only seem to be able to work with the things that go away, things that intermit, things that, go back and forth. So yeah, that's one of the things I'm not sure me or anyone's capable of. But yeah, that definitely lowers my confidence. I'll definitely give him that one.
Iron Charioteer says, have you ever been slimed by a ghost? Like ectoplasm?
No, I can't say I have. Gozer's pretty hot in person, by the way. But other than that, no, I can't say I can't say.
Okay.
I've been slimed, no.
Are you a god?
Iron Charioteer also asks, have you ever done voodoo?
Absolutely not. That's not something I want to dip my toe in the water in. Voodoo and then Haitian or Jamaican Obeah, that's something that if I even bothered with, I don't trust myself to work with, so no.
Okay, this is going to be a tough question to answer in 10 seconds, but try your best. What do you think causes magic or these spells to actually work?
My opinion is that there is some kind of spiritual net, some kind of, force trademark to George Lucas that we can maybe manipulate. That's my opinion. Could be totally wrong, could be something else, and I wouldn't be shocked.
Okay.
Cast spells you must.
Well, Shades, this has been very interesting. Thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it.
No, absolutely. I've wanted to talk to Doug and you guys for a while, so I appreciate you having me on. I really appreciate it.
And
yeah, I've definitely learned a lot more than I do.
I'm getting a little curious about your ex girlfriend. Maybe I should have her on sometime.
I don't see why she wouldn't. It's up to her. But no, yeah, it's if you ever, yeah, it's funny being like a Wiccan and looking at Christian apologetics. It's so much more fun to view it as a polytheist versus as a monotheist looking at apologetics. So yeah, I would say that, that's why I like your channel, Doug, because I get to interact with apologetics in a different way. So
I think what Shades is what he's trying to say is, you could interview her, but be careful. She's a real witch.
The Christians in our town were genuinely afraid of her because I think it had more to do with that she was a confident woman who dressed indecently, and that's enough to scare a lot of evangelicals away. But you combine all those things together, a lot of Christians were scared of her.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't be scared of her. I'd embrace her. And
we can get her and Dean Meadows together. And
there's a good interview. A witch versus an evangelical pastor.
Boy. It's all right, Doug. You're a manly man. You can take her. No, and of course, since we know that Dean is a drowner and not a poofer, I think she would have a lot to say about that. Since we know from the past that Dean's a drowner, not a poofer.
Did he answer that question? Did I ever ask him? I'm not sure if Dean ever answered that one.
I don't know. I didn't mix them up. I get my white guys with beard mixed up. I know Mike did. I could have swore it was Dean. Because all white people look the same when you control for hair color. I thought Dean said he. Oh no, he said that when he said that he would kill his kids if God told him to. And you're
yes,
you're hypothetical.
Yeah, I remember that.
I got that mixed up with drowning and poofing.
Yeah, any religion that says kill your kids if your God tells you to, that's time to move on. Well, have a great night.
I'm sorry. Like I said, Sure. Thanks, Doug.
I'm going to wrap this up. I think we're all getting hungry and tired. So take care. And any final comments from Reed and Pete?
I think we can end with a Sagan quote.
Sure.
I think we should make it a tradition. We hunger to understand, so we invent myths about how we imagine the world is constructed. And they're, of course, based upon what we know, which is ourselves and other animals. So we make up stories about how the world was hatched from a cosmic egg or created after the mating of cosmic deities or by some fiat of a powerful being.
Nice. Thanks, Doug.
Thanks, Reed.
Yeah, that was good.
This is the post-show banter.
Okay.
Are we still alive?
Peanut butter. Peanut butter, peanut butter.
I'm not sure if we're live, Pete. What'd you think of Shades?
Interesting.
Pete's looking up if we're still live before he talks. Don't be a wuss. Come on, say what you think.
It's fascinating.
I like Shades.
I think he's harmless. Sounds like he's, to me, it was more about the ritualistic nature of it and the tradition maybe surrounding this faith, if it can be called a faith.
I don't believe you can affect reality by merely your thoughts other than your own internal thoughts. So I don't believe any of that. I could be wrong. It'd be cool if it were true. I appreciate Dean coming on, even though he was half tired. Who else do we have? Dean, Shades.
And Jordan did push-ups for us.
Oh, Jordan, push-up man, yes. Trying to get buff for the babes. That's what it's all about.
I would encourage Shades to go to iigwest.org. There's a $100,000 challenge if you can demonstrate paranormal or Wiccan abilities. So if you're...
But if he wins the 100,000, we get a cut, right?
Yeah, we get a finder's fee.
Exactly. Have a good night, guys. Take care. Thanks for coming. Thanks for joining.
Bye.